Uh, yeah, I'm good with just jumping in. I think I kept fairly decent notes last time, so
Gotcha. I mean, my take on it is usually with the solo play, it almost starts with a question and answers, anyways. So it has like a subtle kind of moving into things.
right. So I know basically we kind of ended with Davros and
Kalimtas speaking.
right. Yeah, I was trying to think of the name of the guy, um, the guy he brought with him, but I don't think he ever actually his guide to the Skinner. I don't think he ever actually got a name though. But yeah, so he was speaking with Kellen Todd.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was just like a homeless person.
Right. Yeah, and Kellen Toss had sent out what do I have? Irwin and McTaw.
Yeah. What I have um Mukhtar, Muhktar.
Ah, okay.
I mean, granted, 99% of the time I'm making up names on the spot. They probably sound different than how I spell them. Often, like, I hit a name generator until I see something like works, but like it's not necessarily that I'm repeating what the name generator created.
Yeah, 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 and then basically telling him about like the kind of letting him in on their work for the. I don't know if he actually gave the organization name, but like essentially a Democratic League of Tollists or something like that.
Yeah, so the democratic movement, that's one of those things where it is alluding to something that is happening in the city. Um, I do want you to be clear, like when I'm pitching stuff to you, they still have their reasons to be normal people who, make themselves sound better than they might normally be. Or even that they're kind of lying to themselves and make themselves feel better than they might be. Um, I'm not sure I gave a full name to it. That did not make it into my notes. But name dropping the Democratic movement is one of the political intrigues of Tollus. Because again, it is still somewhere between like a theocracy, an actual monarchy. That's kind of what like the actual empire is almost like crumbling because it can't figure out whether it's a theocracy now or whether it's a monarchy. Tollus also has like the actual mages who do a lot to rule this city. Um, a lot of that, though, not necessarily like on Davros's radar, but at least the recognition that technically the monarch of the monarch of the Lion's Throne currently lives in Tollus, as well as technically the head of the Church of Lothian.
Right. I seem to recall like there's at least two or three supposed, people calling themselves the emperor right now. From what
Yep, the
I
only blood relative is a woman who is living to the west of Tollus, and she is trying to make Doranthas the new capital. So I think you can
right.
see the full map right now, right?
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah. So we're gonna do that.
Tarsus is technically the seat of the empire. That's where the throne, the golden throne of the golden lion throne, is in Tarsus. But currently, none of the three people who claim to be the emperor live there. Currently, barbarians have essentially sacked the city. Two of the emperors live in Tollus. One of them claims to be the rightful heir, and the other one claims to be the was essentially the head of the Lothian Church and claims that they should be the one who is the emperor. And then the actual blood relative of the sacked emperor is the woman who's living in Dorinthus right now, and she's trying to get that turned into the capital.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, and this is all like, fascinating to me. I think Davros is definitely not the kind of person who's going to be up on politics. So, but
Yeah, to fall of Rome times, it's hard to imagine what a common Roman would have really thought. Most people who joined into Rome, it was for things like running water and like roads that it made it easy to become Roman. But to imagine what it was like during the fall of Rome, it's people squabbling over all of the money while you're still just like, yeah, I just need to pay my bills.
yeah, yeah,
And even more so at this point, I just need to find out what's wrong with my son or what happened with my son.
yeah. I mean, even if the city was like all burning, all like even if the city itself was being sacked and burning all around it, that's he'd be like, yeah, just I don't care about all this. I need to do what I need to do.
Now, it might be vaguely intriguing to you, and that's purely up to Davros how he plays it off. Like, you can certainly be interested by the idea of hearing that there's a democratic movement, because that is kind of why it's in here, I think, is the recognition that, like, to a lot of people, this is that moment where you're starting to, like, taste blood in the water. Um, 50 years ago, Tolis dropped the, like, law it explicitly made it illegal to worship other deities. Before, for hundreds of years, people did, but on the books, it was still penalizable by death. And like 20 years ago, they dropped the law against using magic. It's still illegal to like charm people and use magic on people, but it's one of those things where like those are different moments where like the blood is in the water.
And it might even be something that Davros is, now that he's heard about it, now that starts to kind of, maybe he starts thinking about it more, and now he's seeing the terrible conditions of the Warrens versus like the some of the opulence in Old Town when he kind of went there with the guards, and so maybe it's just kind of you know just now he's starting to get a sense of, okay, maybe there's maybe you need to think about these kinds of things more or do something.
Yeah, like the Warrens, I think is like 5 or 12 like square miles of like area. Old Town is like 10 times as much. And the Warrens probably has like 60 or 70,000 people. Maybe not that much. Say like 10 or 15,000 people. And then like Old Town has like 2,000 people. And then you think about like the Noble District is the size of Old Town, but the Noble District has like 200 or 300 people.
Right. Yeah.
And he would definitely be quite familiar with, even as a guilder, he lives a cushy life compared to some of the other people. Like the people who live the guild life are like that upper working middle class kind of thing. Not the type of person who's not like working themselves to death, but they're definitely making really good money. Um, but they're also not the people who are likely to have time to use it to their advantage. But I
Right.
feel like that's a good solid reason like why Dem became like a gambler and like a kind of like low life, not maybe not low life, but somebody who like went in for the nicer things, the like lesser vices, is purely because he kind of would have grown up with a little bit more.
Right. Yeah.
So we kind of have that moment where um you know theoretically we could play off as if a week has kind of gone by here. So there's a certain idea of like what you might be up to in the week. And I think there's a lot of room for saying we could pick up with um, something and potentially play things out on that day, just as much as like it kind of comes back around to another Saturday. I'm tempted to say, if you don't have anything in mind, that maybe Kalimtas gets back to you with the return of Erwin and Mukhtar later in the week, and maybe he calls you in like Friday night with the potential of offering the information, and then you could start something on the next Saturday, the next day. Did you have anything in mind what Davros might be up to if he's kind of waiting this week going by without any word from Kalimtas?
Yeah, I mean, aside from he'd want to probably go back home and, inform his wife and kind of let her know that he might be away for, he's found some, potential leads, and so he might be gone for a time, and maybe making preparations, I don't know, maybe um either trying to make preparations for, like, I don't know, friends or something to cover his guild work, or essentially making arrangements, just kind of spending that week doing that while he's waiting to hear back from Kalimtas. Maybe doing a little bit of work if he can, trying to kind of busy himself while he's waiting, but nothing like, uh, yeah, nothing more
None of that
specific than that.
sounds terribly substantial to me. I
No,
feel
no.
like definitely like discussing with your wife is kind of one of those things that at least allays some of the fear in that you are doing something. You have found information that gives you a direction. Just at present, it's not necessarily like bearing fruit, but it is like fruitful. So I feel like that's kind of a direction where at least like allays the fears of your wife and whatnot.
Yeah, and but yeah, none of that is that can all kind of be like breezed past, and then we pick up, with Kalimtas kind of, um, letting him know that, yeah, maybe he's heard something, or sending, essentially inviting him back. Um,
I feel like as far as guild work goes, I'm not sure how much you looked into like the guildsman background, but in many ways, part of the dangers of being a guildsman is that you owe dues on a regular basis. Where a lot of people have like living expenses that they have to decide how wealthfully or how woefully they live. The guildsman, I think, owes like 11 or 15 gold every month. Um, not necessarily even like on the radar after living somebody like Dem, who is basically gambling away certain debts that gave you those, prices just to exist kind of thing. But at the same time, that's the big thing that I would say for Davros is you just have to kind of make sure to spend some of your time doing guild work in order to produce some of that money that you basically owe for dues.
right. Yeah. So maybe he would spend the week, um, yeah, essentially trying to maybe, try to work a little extra hard to. He's not sure how long he's going to be gone.
Well, and even so, part of what I mean there is it's not even necessarily that it's going to come in now to be a thing. But into the future, it's basically like if you take a month off where you're not working, you're going to be spending an extra 15 gold on top of any other living expenses. Versus like
Right.
this
Gotcha.
week, you know, you might be less productive this week because you're distracted. You might also be more productive because you're motivated. So there's a lot of different ways to look at how this week goes by as you basically wait to hear from Kalimkas.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that puts us in kind of a solid place for how at least the first part of your week goes by. Um, I don't know if you've thought at all about kind of the disposition of the wife of Davros. Um, but like I don't think necessarily like her worrying and getting more stressed about like you not having any more information needs to be a part of what you think about here. But in the long run, when it comes back around to, let's say, that Friday, I'd say you get, I think Limtas is likely to send a courier to you, like an actual runner instead of one of the like spirit messengers. Those spirit messengers are definitely kind of like a higher class thing. Um, Whereas he's like in the center of the Warrens, like kind of in the same way you got that homeless person to be your guide, sending a few coin for anybody on the streets is a really good way to get some temporary service. So maybe one day, one time at Friday, you'll get a messenger from a courier, like kind of. I think we discussed it that you're like a blacksmith and you work from home. Um, did we ever decide what you actually smith? Like, are you like what is it? A barrel maker is a oh, I can't think of it. One of my
Oh,
friends, his last name
Cooper.
means barrel maker. What is it?
Cooper.
Yep, Cooper. Todd Cooper. There we go. Um, yeah, like have we ever thought are you like a Cooper? Are you a like a horseshoer? I can't think of what that one is, but like do you know what kind of blacksmithy you do? Otherwise, I assume blacksmith kind of at the house. The courier comes by one day and kind of just like at 4 o'clock finds you at the smith.
Yeah, I think farrier. I think that's what the horse smiths are called.
Sounds right.
But yeah, never really. Aside from like blacksmith, I didn't really have a specific. I hadn't really thought of like a more kind of specific um, niche. I mean, um, yeah, but yeah, probably something like where he's got the forge on the ground floor, and maybe they live above it or behind it or something or around. Yeah,
Yeah. So let's say you're at the forge. It's getting later in the day, but you still have plenty of time that you have light, and you could easily still be working for however long you would like. But you do see as like a boy of like 15 or so, kind of like seems to be moseying around in front of the shops and the houses near where you are. And after a while, kind of walks up to you and, are you Davros? The Kalimtas has sent me for you. And you see he's wearing rags belaying the Warrens. Very dirty, just as much as he has like clean spots. He has more dirty spots. Um, Not that he would necessarily be able to smell across other scents in the air, and certainly not against like the actual smoke of a forge. But he smells as bad as he looks physically.
yeah. So Davros is maybe kind of giving a bit of an eye towards the kid. He's kind of as he's like kind of outside, and then when he comes in, he kind of takes a couple last swings, to shape whatever he's working on. Kind of plucks it into the water to cool. Wipe his brow. And then to the kid, he'll kind of look him over. I am Davros. Uh, and then he will kind of seeing the kid in the rags. Did Kalantas sent you? Well, yeah, I'm just about to grab something to eat. Here, join me. Tell me what he's got to tell me. Essentially, maybe like get just like a hunk of like probably somewhat decent bread and just like I rip off a bit and give it to the kid while he's
Thank your kindness, sir. I have been paid to run this to you, and he's sealed it, asking me that I should not look upon the contents. And he'll go to hand you an envelope, and you can see it has like a red wax seal on. And like in the wax, you can see that there's like kind of two spirals that are almost kind of spinning like against each other. But they're kind of spiraling out almost like two dots next to each other, like side by side, right and left. And then one spiral kind of goes like counterclockwise to the left, and then the other spiral goes like counterclockwise. I guess wait, the first one on the left goes like counterclockwise but like downward, and the second one is like counterclockwise but upward. So it kind of looks like these two spirals could like almost interlink with each other. I'd be happy to share in your meal, but this is what I was paid to do, sir. I believe he's calling you to find him at the Skinner, but you're. And he'll like reach his hand out like meekly for the bread, but he's also like ready to like go as well.
Yeah. So Davros, kind of hearing that, will all right then, go on, take it, be off with you. Um, but he will go to probably without like any finesse at all, go to essentially like rip open, kind of open up the envelope, kind of like tear off the seal. It's going to take him, depending on how, and then go to start trying to read the letter, trying to look like it's not as much of a struggle as it is. I don't know exactly how much it's going to be on this letter, but he's not a fast reader.
Gotcha. Roll an investigation for me.
So that would be a 12.
I should have just called for a normal D20. I didn't even think about it like that. And then let me get you to roll 2D100s.
Oh, that didn't really work. I have to roll them kind of separate.
Oh, was 33 the total on him though?
Yeah, I think it was like 29 and 4. Yeah, so we can use those then, 29 and 4.
So inside the message, you're not going to see a lot. There's not going to be a whole lot for you to, take this time to read. But it is written in common. Maybe has some like flourishes and some like verbiage that is like a little bit beyond Davros. But in the end, it's basically um, dearest friend Davros, I have heard back from Erwin and Mukhtar. And sometimes no news is good news. We've come to some conclusion that your son has been working with some other folk. Perhaps it is best for us to discuss together rather than use names. As far as where his recent work has taken him, neither was especially successful in finding things out. But it doesn't mean that we're not hopeful. And again, I do look forward to seeing you if you can stop by the Skinner, or if you require, I could perhaps find time to come to you. And then it just finishes with, let's say maybe like his actual sign off, like sincerely. It's kind of like maybe lost on you, but you do recognize like his name as like Kalintas Erling, kind of like written in some kind of grandiose flourishes, but on some level, kind of recognizing like this is some nicer handwriting. Perhaps this is somebody who's one actually writing to you, and he's like a little higher born, or perhaps like on some level maybe he's got like a scribe who's writing for him, and that scribe is a little bit more kind of like learned in such words. um oh yeah, how do you think that leaves Davros? Kind of like a little bit of information, but not too much.
Yeah, I think Davros is going to, even though there's not really too much, nothing in the way of specifics, he's going to want to essentially um, uh, head straight for the. He essentially wants to head straight to see Kalimtas. Maybe he'd wait until the morning. Um, Given I think you said it's kind of late in the day today.
Yeah, this would be about 4 in the afternoon. So you've got probably like 2 or 3 hours of light before you would be in the Warrens after dark.
Yeah, so I think he would basically decide, okay, first light, I'm going to head out to see, head back towards the Skinner. Hopefully, he'll have an easier time of finding it um, this time than on that. He's been there once, but at the very least, if he goes, hopefully, you know, early enough in the day, it'll give him enough time in the uh, in the daytime to find it again. Um, yeah, so I think his plan would be to head there the next, basically early the next morning, essentially up at the crack of dawn and heading out.
Gotcha. Is there anything else that you would like to attend to this evening?
Uh, Not nothing specific.
Gotcha. So yeah, when you set off the next day to head into the Warrens, um, let me have you roll. Roll a d20 for me.
All right, 16.
All right, sounds good. And then, you kind of follow through on your way through like the Guildsman district and heading off towards that general direction, um, and into the Warrens area. When you arrive in the Warrens, let me have you roll a. You can do intelligence to try to like simply remember your way. You could do survival to try to like, I don't know. You could do either of those, intelligence or survival, to try to find yourself like tracking back. So what is that, intelligence or wisdom?
Yeah, I think he'd try to remember or to essentially try to like think of like, okay, did I pass
Do
like?
you have history?
No, no.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was thinking, is maybe like a straight intelligence just to remember then.
That is a 1. was almost a 19, and then it turned into a 3, which is a 1.
Oh, I keep forgetting. I have actual tables for random encounters in Tolus too. Yeah, the encounter table I have absolutely does not make any sense for what we've got going on. What I ended up rolling, this is why I'm just going to tell you, is like, because of how funny it is. Your favorite vendor doesn't open up a shop today. Whereabouts? Unknown. That has nothing to do with. It's a very weird, like,
I mean, if he wasn't already searching for a missing person.
right? Like, hey, surprise, you get another missing person to search after. Let me see what that shows up on the actual Tolus one. I like just found it today, like hidden inside of my documents thing.
Actually, I just have to return a
Uh,
call real quick. Can we take like 5 minutes?
oh yeah, you said you have to return a call. Go for it.
Yeah, just so I missed one, so just want to make sure everything's all right. Thanks. Okay, sorry, all good.
Oh no, you're golden. I was actually grabbing some more detailed pictures of the Warrens. Um, so while you are kind of like walking through the Warrens and kind of meandering down, like again, this is a place where the actual streets are like 5 or 8 feet wide. Most of the time, this is like shoulder to like inanimate object, like in all directions. And it's all kind of walking down alleys. At any given time, the alley is like somebody's house because houses are just built wherever they go. When things collapse, sometimes people clean up a little bit to move them out of the way. Sometimes things are just left where it is and you build on top of it. The Warrens are a very chaotic kind of place for that reason. So you're like walking through and maybe don't even recognize that you're lost because you just wonder if it's changed that much, like in this week. Uh, in general, people in Tolus know don't go to the Warrens. So it's not like this is the type of place where you get experience with and you feel comfortable unless you're essentially in the position that you live there. But while you're kind of going through the streets and you're, just as much kind of like looking around as you are kind of like trying to mind your own business, you eventually see somebody who kind of sticks out a little bit. They don't have um, the same level of kind of like dirtiness and kind of like lack of hygiene that you've kind of like come to expect from like the homelessness of the Warrens and from kind of the like scrawny sort of like I can't think of the actual name when you're starving, but like basically how hungry and emaciated, there we go, that people tend to look who live in this place. You see this person and they're plump. They've got nicer clothes on. They might not have like washed recently, but they're certainly not like caked in dirt kind of thing. And you see this person and they're kind of like looking around, kind of confused. And then when they spot you, their eyes seem to light up and sir, beg your pardon. Uh, do you know where the nearest place I can get a room is? I believe I'm turned about.
So Davros will head over, uh, looking the guy over. That makes two of us, I'm afraid. Looking for a place myself. Does the when he was in the Kruger Skinner, is that just a tavern, or was that also seem like were there rooms for rent? I forget.
Effectively, it's a tavern. You wouldn't be surprised if people slept there, but it doesn't necessarily have like rooms for it.
Gotcha.
From your perspective, it was like an open air kind of barn that was kind of like converted into they serve alcohol.
Gotcha. Yes, not not aware of any inns around here. So I'm no local myself. Uh, what brings you here, might I ask? You look even more out of place than I do. Maybe a little suspiciously, like Davros is kind of um, almost like paranoid about.
Roll an insight check.
I think that should be a flat 8. Oh no, +2, so 10.
Well, I'm new in town, and I thought I was coming to Midtown here, south of the river. I understand. And he kind of like points off in the general northward direction. You can hear the actual falls of the Gasping Falls nearby, and he kind of like points off in that direction. And I believe I'm looking for Griffin. And he like opens like a little like kind of like fold of paper. Griffin's rest. Griffin's rest. Tavern's Row. Um, and effectively, I think even as a smith, you would kind of recognize like Tavern's Row is next to um shit. Now the name's escaping me. Delver Square in Midtown. As far as the 10 goes, seems to be somebody pretty confused. I wouldn't necessarily say it like allays any of your feelings that could still be a dangerous person. But on some way, I'd say you're at least picking up this person's confused and lost.
You're a long way from there, as I'm afraid, and this isn't the best part of town. I've got business of my own, but he's going to kind of maybe kind of hem and haw a little bit, looking around. I maybe I can get you to um, back to the Guildsman's district. I'm just trying to think of the if you how much or like the next whatever the next district over towards Midtown is. Um,
Yeah, I mean, effectively, Guildsman connects into Midtown. They kind of like butt up against each other.
yeah, so he would maybe like I can maybe get you as far as the Guildsman's district. Someone can maybe direct you from there, but gonna cost you. Like I said, I got my own business to take care of today. But you don't want to be wandering these streets by yourself.
Do you want to be more intimidating or more persuasive here?
I think more persuasive. He's not trying to like bully the guy into hiring him. But it's just more his like his overall nature is like gruff, but he is essentially trying to be persuasive.
Gotcha. Let me get a persuasion from you.
And that will be a straight 9.
I'm not a wealthy man. You see me with all that I have, and He's just kind of like looks vaguely like traveler's clothes with like a little bit nicer like clothing on today. But he's got like a backpack basically to him. In many cases, this is essentially like perhaps just like a kind of the way somebody might travel cross country to like start a new life. They might be an adventurer, might be like a performer. But I'm not a terribly wealthy man. Could we make a deal for 4 copper?
Don't tell you what. Why don't you just I get you out of here, get you back on your way, and uh, when we cross paths again. You buy me a drink.
I I don't. Well, we for goodwill and the grace of Lothian. Take like a moment to kind of like ponder, like, will we see each other? And then just kind of think, like, all right, for the sake of being nice. So you have a vague idea that you might have gone through and kind of into a more like northern area of the Warrens. You know where the waterfall is, and kind of what that means. What kind of idea do you have in mind for getting this person out? And do you put any effort in finding your own way in that same time? Or are you just trying to get this person to the Guildsman district?
Yeah, I think he might be trying to keep like one eye out for, if he happens while he's trying to get this guy out, like spots any place that seems familiar. But he is kind of um, more a man of his word, so he wouldn't. He would essentially try to spend most of his or be mostly concerned with kind of leading the
So,
guy out.
like, if you wanted to almost follow the river to the north and like continue on to the north and keep the river in hearing, I'll give you advantage on like a survival to find your way out of the Warrens. If you wanted to potentially like turn around and use that you're heading towards the river to move hopefully towards the Skinner and find your way out like by a way that you kind of already know before, it'll be just like an intelligence kind of thing. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. Is like you can potentially find your way out either way. One might aid you in finding your way as well for next time.
Yeah, I think he would probably think, okay, I can use you know the the river, the waterfall as a kind of landmark and head, um, sort of the understanding of where that leads. Try and use that, and then just hope he can still have time to find his way back and find the Skinner once he's taking care of this.
Gotcha. So yeah, let me get a survival at advantage as you kind of like track your way using the river and kind of try to head out of the Warrens here.
All right, so it's a 19.
Excellent. So you have like this little bit of a conversation with this gentleman as you kind of like head through this area, kind of like rounding about and keeping the sound of the river pretty strong before eventually you can kind of like see through the occasional like kind of alleyway and see the actual river behind some of these homes. But basically, keep that in sight, and you can bring this fellow out to. Um, I feel like that bridge has a name, but I've cut it off on this screen. But basically, up towards that bridge on the northern side of the Warrens there, and the edge of the Guildsman district. When you get him there, he'll again offer you a couple of coins. This time he'll pull out uh, maybe like a silver coin and kind of like chop it in half and hand you like half of a silver coin, effectively 5 copper pieces.
So Davros is, yeah, he'll kind of give a nod and make a little bit of a grunt and take it. Well, all right then. I hope you can find your way from here. And I assume they would have kind of, exchanged names at some point while they were walking. I'm not actually expecting to meet this guy ever again. It was kind of just more
Yeah,
for.
his name was Barnaby. He's coming from kind of like north of Tolus, and he just like really got like turned around in trying to find his way to Midtown.
So Davros he'll take the preferred half silver. Kind of all right then. Well, good luck to you, Barnaby. And then I think almost kind of without even much more than that, he'll kind of like turn and start heading back for the toward the Warrens.
Give yourself 25 XP for that.
All right.
All right. So from oh man, I've got a cough like so bad.
Yeah, we're good. Take
From
your.
oh no, you're good. Like it's like just kind of like hanging out. It's not actually. It's like that weird level of I need to cough, but I can't. Um, Once you're back on the old sea road, you're back to the potential of like 3 different entry points where you can kind of follow through. You could go back in essentially where you came out, and I'll give you advantage on a survival to try to like backtrack your way and see if that gets you closer to it, like kind of following the way you just found with Barnaby. Or you could go back into one of the other routes and try to do um, probably like a history through the southern one. Because I think that's where you went in last time and you like hired the homeless person. Or I don't know what I could do for the third one to make that one like another check, but I feel like those might be the 2 checks basically. You could do survival with advantage to kind of follow the Barnaby path, or a history to go to the south.
Yeah, I think Davros would just essentially go like right back the way he came, essentially trying to essentially backtrack. Um, Kind of exactly almost follow the same route he brought Barnaby out with, and then essentially and then resume his search rather than um, trying to maybe come at it from a more familiar angle. So he'll just go right back kind of the way he came.
Was that one rolled with advantage and it totals 6?
So I rolled the first one and it was a 17, and then I rolled the second one and it knocked it to a 3. So I don't know how you want to use that, but it ended up with
Oh,
3 and 3.
it's 3-3. Yeah. That's one thing I don't like about this die roller.
But I'm perfectly fine using the threes. So, I mean, he doesn't know the Warren, so it makes perfect sense that he still be essentially even thinking he's going back the same way, just get lost again.
So while you're traveling back through the Warrens this time, you pretty quickly notice that you already have some, for now, shadows. You're noticing people kind of like peeking out of the darkness and watching you. You're relatively sure that you saw some of this while you were still traveling with Barnaby. But you're definitely more sure of it now that you've kind of doubled back. And you're kind of curious, like, whether it is a threat, whether it's something you should be worried about. And as you kind of like head into the Warrens, you're finding yourself moving through these alleys with a little bit more intention based on like these eyes that you have following you more than perhaps actually getting yourself where you need to go. Um, Let me have you roll a D8, unless you think at some point you would confront them yourself.
Uh, he'd be gripping his maul, but I think not. He wants to get to the Skinner, so he
Not going to
wouldn't stop.
exacerbate it, though. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let me just get a D8 from you.
All right. 7.
Yeah. So you pass through, you kind of like hold your maul a little bit closer. You're still spotting these people, but otherwise it doesn't seem like it's getting any worse than that is. Do you have any thoughts how, from finding yourself lost again, you might find yourself um, heading in the right direction here?
Well, last time he basically found someone to uh, guide him. So I think he would. So maybe actually thinking like if these people are following him, he'd almost be looking for um, maybe like a one way, like an alley or essentially somewhere where he could essentially go into, stop, and kind of wait for someone to come at him, and then maybe try and turn the tables and maybe force them to um, either force them to guide him or uh, something like that. It's almost like he thinks he's being followed, so he's going to essentially like turn a corner and then just kind of turn around and wait if he can find a place that looks like it might be suitable.
So are you trying to like spring a trap on somebody, or are you trying to just like basically like spin from a dead end and just kind of call them out?
Maybe more trying to spring a trap. So he might maybe try and make it look like he's just kind of blindly wandered into a dead end when he and thinking that okay, maybe if the people following him know the Warrens, maybe they think they've got him trapped, and then he's gonna. But then he thinks maybe he can turn um, kind of
So
spring the trap
maybe
of his
you're
own kind
trying
of
to
thing.
head down a dead end and then like kind of disappear and hope to find them in that dead end and you behind them.
Yeah, either that or just like kind of come out and confront them once they come in. Um,
Gotcha. So at present, I think the best way to give you a chance at this is to say you can do a stealth roll, but it's going to be a disadvantage because this is somebody who's kind of like familiar versus you who doesn't know where you're going.
yeah, I think that makes sense. It's not a great plan, but Davros is not the smartest guy, so
Yeah, I think it puts you likely to find yourself in the trap.
yeah. So
Oh,
that will be an 11.
I think I clicked on the die and it is now going to always show me your two dice rolls because you roll a 20 and an 8.
Yep.
Yeah, that's freaking awesome. I didn't know it would do that. I think once I clicked on your die, it was just going to split them for me.
Oh yeah, yeah. It does. Yeah, if I click on it, it does the same thing. Yep, 20 and an 8.
So that's
Yeah, and the 8 would be an 11 with his dex.
gotcha. So when you kind of like head down a little alley and you kind of like hope to like walk down and towards this one area where a house is, and you think you have a little spot to like duck down a further kind of side alley and hopefully kind of disappear as they walk past you for these last like 50 feet before somebody's house is like built across this actual like street that you're walking down. And you kind of like go to like pop into this little side thing and try to hide yourself. You hear footsteps kind of pass by you, and you kind of like wait a few moments. And then when you like go to kind of like spring out, hoping to be like 10 or 15 feet behind them, you like spring out of your little hide and you see that while you're behind, like one teenager who's kind of standing like 20 feet to your right, who like walked down that alleyway. There's another two who are like kind of casually kind of like sitting against like the opposite wall of where you are, about like 8 feet in front of you, a little bit to your left. And then there's another one who's about like 8 feet to your left, but along the wall that you're on. And each of them are kind of like leaned up against the wall, like straight up watching you. And then the other one who like walked down the alley is basically turned around. So you kind of find that there's like three teenage boys who are kind of watching you at this point. And they all seem to be kind of at this point waiting for you, between like basically 5 and 20 feet away from you. And when you kind of like pop out, they all just have this kind of like wry little smirk on their faces. What do you suppose you're doing in the Warrens today, old man?
Well, that's my business, isn't it? You've been following me long enough.
It's pale dog business when you're in our parts.
Would that be named Davros's heard of? I feel like that came up last time, but
I think I gave you the name last time,
oh, maybe
but
something Captain Simon mentioned.
roll a history for me.
So that would be an 11.
Doesn't look like I put it in my notes. Doesn't necessarily surprise me. That's one of the problems with my DM notes is quite often not everything gets in there. Um, but you said that was an 11?
11, yes.
No, I'd say on some level between your time with the guards that day, like last week, and with Kalimtas, you have at least an understanding that the Pale Dogs are one of the gangs of the Warrens. Um, I think for now, basically, just to recognize them as a gang is probably enough.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Davros is kind of yeah, gripping his maul, kind of looking at these teenagers. Uh, Pale dogs, is it? Well, look, I got someplace I need to be. You don't bother me. You don't turn into dead dogs.
Roll. I feel like that's a pretty solid intimidation at this point. Roll an
Yeah, that's what he's
intimidation.
going for. Yeah. And if with the same idea, if he's trying to essentially use strength to kind of make himself look intimidating, that would be a +3 to that, which would make it a 20. If
So
it's charisma, it's just a flat 17.
gotcha. I feel like if this is going to be strength, it's definitely much closer to the idea of like this is a hostility um, that is intimidating. So I don't think that's necessarily far off. Whereas like charisma, I feel like you could almost get away with like almost like describing how you're going to kill somebody to remind them that you are still a threat. So
Yeah. Well, I guess in this case though, he was kind of hoping that he could essentially, if he turns the tables, then maybe essentially try to intimidate them into being like, all right, we don't want any trouble. We'll maybe he can convince them to just tell him where he can find the crooked Skinner. So maybe it would be a little bit more of a kind of a little more
gotcha.
charisma
Would
than.
you actually tell them something to the level of like, I'm going to get to the crooked Skinner. If I have to kill you to get there, I don't mind removing some garbage. Something
Yeah,
along those lines.
yeah, something like that. So yeah, so kind of like, yeah, following up after like the dead the dead dogs. He's like, look, I don't want any trouble. You know tell me I'm headed to the Skinner. Get me there. Um yeah, you point me in the right direction. I'll have no trouble, kind of thing. Yeah.
Trouble with not wanting any trouble is the trouble's found you. You need the Skinner. I need a kill. You and me, winner wins. No other rules. If you take me out, these two will take you to the Skinner. And you see is like the oldest boy who's like standing right across from you. Um, Essentially is like challenging you, like 1-on-1. Whoever walks away, walks away.
So Davros will kind of give like a roll of his shoulders, kind of crack his neck, kind of again maybe like shift the maul in his hand and be like, well, you insist. All right.
One moment here, and we'll roll some initiative. If I hide my dice roller, it like stops rolling the die right away. That's some cheater shit.
I'll just try to not look. But that would be a 16 for me on initiative.
Alrighty, so like as you two kind of like nod to this, you look to the others and he kind of like nods to them. He's basically going to kind of like 1 foot still like up against the wall, almost like from his like casual position. He's going to like push off of this wall as he leaps across. He's going to like pulling a just kind of like a baton from his side, from like his belt. He's going to like draw this baton and try to like peen you across the head with this like kind of focused hammer almost. Um, Whoops, forgot to clear the other die, but he's going to. Looks like it might be the 15, might be a 7. Seven's probably a miss. Gonna settle on the 7 as he's got a 10 to hit you as he like leaps across with this baton. I assume that's a miss.
Yep, that will miss.
Yeah, so he like covers the ground between the two of you in this like swift motion as he like swings out for your temple. What would you like to do?
Yeah, so Davros maybe moving a little bit more quickly than they might expect of kind of an older, bigger guy, but he kind of so sidestepping that, he is going to it's like just kind of mutter like I don't have time for this, and he is going to attempt to kind of using the not swinging like the business end of the mace, almost like taking like the bottom, essentially trying to whack the teenager aside the head. Essentially, he's trying to non essentially use non-lethal damage, but he's going to whack him with the or maybe like almost like with the maul, but like almost like more like a like into the gut, kind of to wind him, kind of thing. But essentially
Yeah,
doesn't want to deal with lethal damage is kind of the
they don't like fully like tell you you've got to decide ahead of time, and it definitely doesn't like change your actual weapon profile. If you're in melee combat, you can always choose to do non-lethal. It's when you're doing ranged things that it's essentially like range and magic don't have that choice. It's actually one of the things that I think subtly makes melee characters stronger is that you don't have to make that decision until you actually knock somebody out. You can basically say like, and I'd like it to be non-lethal.
yeah. I was just kind of trying to like think of how I would flavor it a little bit to kind of because
I feel
obviously
like the solid idea is the idea of like going for actual like center mass instead of like I had him going for your temple because he doesn't have like the cool thing about the pale dogs is like these are children, but they once they're like mid-teens, they're already old. They need to get promoted.
right. Yeah, that'll just be a 10, so that'll probably miss.
Yeah, so he just kind of like dodges to the side, and man, this is where multi-attack is really nice. I think I am going to. Yeah, I think he's got to just go for the same as he kind of like once now that he's kind of closed this area, he's just going to swing again. This time trying to almost like get behind you and kind of crack down onto your spine, trying to find a way to like slow you with this hit, so he can try to mortally wound you. Um, 5 is an 8. Might be the 15 is the 18. Could be the 12. Oh, we're gonna go for the 8. Looks like it's settling on a 15 to hit you.
That will miss actually.
Oh, it's gonna not bode well for him, as you hit him a lot easier than he does you. So as he kind of like swings off your back, is this armor, or is this what kind of armor are you wearing?
So he's actually not wearing any armor, which means as a barbarian, so he is.
Yeah, so swinging at you, you're just that like quick and like what is it? It's Constitution and Strength.
Con and dexterity, so it's almost so maybe even it almost like it hits him, and it's just like it does nothing. Like he just like it's almost like it didn't feel it, kind of thing.
Yeah, you said your dexterity is a +3, and
Yeah.
what is it?
So
Your
would
AC 16.
so it's AC 17. I've got a +4
Crushing.
con. So
Yeah, so that's
13 would
probably
be
hitting
like
into your actual body. and he like smacks it into your spine, and it like doesn't even resonate with you as you get hit, and he's going to have a little bit of like a recognition, like he was fast enough this time, but he still can't. He like got a hit, and it was not enough. I always kind of like to look at it like like 10 and below is like just your body. The like 10 through what is it, 13 or 11 through 13 is like a dexterity missing you. And then it'd be like the 14 through 17 is like the con missing you. You know what I mean? To like kind of describe like how a person dodged. That's one of the
Yeah,
things I try to keep in mind because like I think it's nice to know like whether it was somebody's dexterity or like their armor or in your case your constitution that made it miss. But yeah, you'll definitely see a little bit of panic in his eye as he lands a blow, but it doesn't actually affect you at all.
yeah, and I feel like maybe it might be something they're doing with one D&D. I feel like maybe that was something Don mentioned, where like if you get, if there's some effect that essentially, like if your armor class is a combination of dexterity and armor or something else, and you essentially get to like a condition where you can't move, then it would almost like reduce your armor class. But anyway, yeah.
I
So
could see that if you were like in a restrained position, you lose your dexterity based armor.
right. So instead of like yeah. But anyway,
I
yeah.
think
So
that's one of those things that definitely makes sense because you can be stunned and technically still have dexterity increasing your armor and you're paralyzed, like you can't move.
yeah, it just never really made sense to me that yeah. But yeah, so he would let out, probably Davros would like let out a grunt as it kind of hits him, but he kind of like shrugs it off and kind of turning back as the guy's kind of darting around him. He's almost, he's going to like kind of essentially like sweep the maul and essentially try to like knock the kid maybe into the wall again, trying to essentially just knock him out. But that'll only be an 11.
That one's closer. Effectively, you're like swinging your maul past him, and he's almost like just pulling out of the way enough that you see, like, as the maul like leaves like a little bit of kind of like a burnish across the leather, like just a little kind of like dot of the slightest bit of the maul scratching across his leather. And he's going to kind of take that opportunity to once again swing his little like baton towards your skull. 18's what he needs. 15 will do it.
Yep,
Yeah, the
18 will hit.
15's going to give him an 18 to hit. As he connects with you, he's going to deal. I got to remember to clear that. He's going to do this +1. So, looking like his first blow to connect is going to be for 6 bludgeoning damage as he smacks you in the skull.
All right, so he'll feel that for sure. So maybe
Ha ha! Pale dogs get the first. Bring it on, old man.
So yeah, so maybe kind of like putting like one hand up and kind of feeling like maybe a little sticky blood where the baton hit him. Davros is going to like in response just yell, essentially give out like a like unintelligible like roar as he goes into a rage. And I think now he is not as he goes into the rage, he's essentially no longer thinking, okay, like he because at first he's like, I don't want to be this kid, like this is a kid, like dangerous maybe, but it's a kid. But I think now he's kind of as he goes into a rage, he's just like uh, swinging his maul, kind of a little more with
Now
a little
this
more
is
bloodlust.
real.
Yeah.
Is Reckless level 2? Do you not have it yet?
Yeah, not to level 2, and that is
Gotcha.
that's a miss, crit miss,
So,
but I will get inspiration though. I think right.
yep, yep. So as you kind of like swing past him, And he's kind of like taunting you. Like his taunt is just as much to like the other two, like the younger boys who are basically like standing by watching this. Maybe he's like 15 and they're like 13 and like 10ish. But as you kind of like swing past him, he's just going to kind of like try to grab like towards like the back of your head and then like bring his baton down on you as you kind of like fumble past him. And he's going to swing again for you. 16 would be what we need, but the 6 is not going to be enough. As he kind of like reaches out for you, and you like your like little bit of a stumble is just enough that you fall past his hand, and by the time his arm's coming down, it's like swinging past your like feet as you clear some distance between the two of you. How would you like to recover and respond?
Yeah, so with another roar, kind of almost like dragging the maul across the ground for a second before like bringing it almost up, trying to essentially like almost like knock his head off of his shoulders from beneath. Um, I'm getting a lot. I'm getting strong vibes of I don't know if you've ever seen Sin City, but where Marv is fighting Kevin, like this big
I was
hulking.
just thinking about like it's the like do you have like a leather handle on it? So you're almost like spiking him out with the extra distance on the mall. But I think I can remember that fight because it's like outside of the farmhouse, right?
Yeah, and he's like yeah, like big hulking Marv, and this guy's just like kind of jumping around, and then he
He
finally, I think,
starts to like tie him up so
yeah, he's
Kevin
got
like
like
can't get the distance.
yeah, he's got like chains. He's like, let's see you hop around now, and then he just like proceeds to like just beat the shit out of him.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those that's like reckless paddling for sure. Because
Yeah,
I feel like he starts to basically use Kevin to tie Kevin up. And then once he's like stuck is once he's just like one shot, one kill kind of thing. But yeah, it's been ages since I've watched Sin City. But I
yeah,
definitely feel that still.
yeah. So yeah, so he is yeah, so attacking again. Yeah, gonna go with it. Use my inspiration, so maybe I'll actually hit this time. Oh yeah, 21.
Oh, yeah, solid hit. Sadly, you would have hit with any of.
And then let's see, the maul is 2d6 plus, and then it should be 5 because I'm raging. So 12 damage should be.
Yeah. So describe to me as you kill this kid.
Yeah, I think he's like he's hopping around and like kind of maybe like taunting and looking, and maybe he's like just like looking back towards the other two, and like his grin is widening, and then the maul just kind of flies out and just completely demolishes his face, like, and he just kind of drops like a sack of like wheat or something. Um,
Gotcha. Like, do you see yourself having like not like a thrown attack, but like narratively, did you just throw them all into his face?
I almost kind of had it like he was kind of like almost like the two hands he kind of dragged it, so it was almost like scraping along the ground before he kind of brought it up. And yeah, maybe if the kid was like a little bit away, he almost like kind of like lets it go, and it just goes flying right, yeah, right into his face.
Oh wait, were you thinking an uppercut though?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I
I
was
got
had.
you. Yeah, so like you were already kind of like stumbling across and he had to overextend himself. In that kind of moment of kind of goading you on, not noticing, and you bring it up into that uppercut. He's overextended right onto the button, and you just smash his lower jaw, and he just like stumbles across your feet. And the other two kids, um, yeah, so like the one who is already to your left books it and is gone. But the one who like passed you by, the youngest of them, goes to run, but he's got to run past you. So what are you thinking here? Is like the two of these kids like watch you like kill their friend and they just flee. But one of them has to get past you. What are you thinking with that one? Are you going to try to grab him, remind him that he owes you directions?
Yeah, I think Davros is going to essentially try to essentially kind of like bring his arm like sweeping out to try to grapple this kid as he tries to run past.
Gotcha. I think while you're raging, you have advantage on strength checks. But let me get an athletics from you.
Oh yeah, advantage on strength checks. Yeah, and this would be, I guess, essentially a reaction, right? Um, he's still in a
Um,
rage.
yeah, yeah. Narratively, this is just how it's playing out. Like these two kids broke. Um, they're not like holding their mental capacities. You know what I mean? Like this is that like you get into a fight, you never know whether the people are going to jump you or whether they're going to run. These two both ran.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, strength
Yeah,
athletics would be a 20.
I rolled a two. He's got a two total. So you definitely have that. Like as he just like runs past you, you just like grab this like scrawny little like 10, 11-year old kid, and he's just got nothing but fear in his eyes.
Yeah, and I think Davros is gonna. He essentially lets the rage drop at this point. He's like, the immediate threat is dead, and this kid is, even much younger, and he kind of almost looking like a little shamefaced, like still like kind of breathing heavily, probably blood dripping down from the wound on his head from the baton, and he's just gonna be like at the like looking at this kid, like start like maybe kind of like grab him by the scruff of the neck and just start shaking him, and then he like, Crooked Skinner, where?
Yeah, so like in the process of grabbing him and starting to like just like kind of get that name out, he's like just kind of like pleading, like, we don't have a choice. This is we have to. We and he's just kind of like pleading like the whole time. But he can start to direct you in that way, gain a little bit more kind of his constitution the closer you get to it. But by the time you get close enough where he can point it out, he's like actively trying to like kind of fight you to like say like, that's it, let me go. You've got the Skinner. Please just let me go, sir. Don't hurt me.
Yeah, I think once he gets within, um, once he can like either kind of see it or he knows like he's in the, yeah, once he sees the sign, like the crude sign, um, he will kind of he will let the kid go. Um,
Once he gets about 20 or so feet away from you, you hear him kind of like yell off, kind of like a goading, like kind of last minute, like talking shit. Like the pale dogs are gonna find you, and next time we'll jump you. Maybe something like, I wish I was more creative to actually have thought of that, like a pack of dogs. Um, pale dogs have your eye, have our eye on you, and next time it'll be the pack. Something along those lines. But it's once he's well away from you and right before he disappears into an alleyway.
yeah,
And Kid probably pissed himself while he was directing you through the Warrens as well. Um, but he can get you to the Crooked Skinner, and you can head on in to see Kalintas Erling.
yeah, I think he'll kind of, as he comes in again, kind of the the rage subsiding a little bit, or the rage having subsided, but and kind of thinking about, he's gonna maybe kind of stop to grab a drink from Maybell, and then be like, here to see Kellen Toss.
Shit, I'm trying to think if I gave them any other drinks other than ale. She'll pour you an ale.
Yeah, he would just
Care
take,
for anything else, darling? Or
no, just the ale.
and she'll kind of like, um, you might notice there's relatively similar crowds around here. That's the one who I had was the homeless person, so I'm gonna delete that one. I don't know if I actually deleted the ones I dropped as Mukhtar or Erwin last time. But you can kind of see like similar crowds around the place, and she just asks you like hold on a few minutes, and she's just gonna send the person who's like sitting at the bar upstairs and to check to see if Clintas will see you.
Gotcha. And while he's sitting and waiting, he'll kind of like to he'll start sipping on his beer and almost like an afterthought to her, like these pale dogs. They as dangerous as they seem to think they are. Almost kind of apropos of nothing to start with.
Pale dogs are perhaps the biggest threat of the Warrens. There's more gangs than just them, but most of this territory is, as far as they're concerned, theirs.
All right. Uh, like had a bit of a run in on a with a few of them on my way here, so just well,
They know us well enough, and we know them well enough. We all do well to stay out of each other's business, but it doesn't mean it won't eventually boil over.
well then I guess I should just warn you. I don't want to cause undue trouble, but I did kill one of them. Cornered me in an alley. Didn't leave me much choice. And almost like maybe looking a little bit ashamed, and kind of then taking another sip of his beer and kind of falling silent after that. Um,
I think she'll set down a second beer for you. Like she'll pour another one and kind of just while you're taking a sip, maybe like tilt your glass up a little bit further, like drink. Now's the time to have that. Um, Kind of like medicate this feeling. But you likely don't have a choice. If you see the pale dogs, they're ready to bite. They're Giraith doesn't give them too much of a choice. Their their life in the gangs is dangerous. You can kind of gather she's holding back some information, but at the same time, like at this point, she's trying to make you feel better about like having to make a decision that you don't really have a choice on. It was you or him, is kind of what she's passing on there.
yeah, he's not, and Davros is not really at this point kind of interested in prying or learning more information. Maybe at some point, but for now, he just kind of essentially follow her advice and maybe finish off the first drink a little bit quicker, and then move to the second one, give her another kind of maybe a grateful nod, but otherwise kind of not really saying too much more.
So after like 2 or 3 minutes goes by, probably still with that first one, like still has a little bit of drink left in it. You'll have the guy come down from upstairs and he'll basically usher you forward like, Kalintas will see you, friend, if you'd like to follow me, and he'll like bring you up. And then what was it? I feel like I said basically like think of it as like stairs in one of these two like more northerly back rooms. And it leads up to this kind of like top like mezzanine. But he's not going to follow you in. He's just going to turn around and go back down below. But you'll see Kalimtas kind of like sat at the table, closes up like a book, like a ledger as you arrive, kind of ushers you forward to grab a seat. And welcome, Davros. It's good to see you were able to make it.
Davros will kind of nod and probably like while he was down, he was trying to kind of like wipe away a little bit of the blood, but you probably can still see like the maybe the bump on his head. And I made it, not without any trouble, but I am here, and kind of he'll reach into maybe like a pocket of his and pull out the letter, kind of the unsealed now letter, and said you wanted to talk. So what did you learn?
Kind of looking you over for a moment. Um, you don't require any assistance. Is that your blood?
Yeah, most of it probably, but I'll be all right.
Well, between Erwin and Mukhtar, we weren't too successful at finding out much at all of what Dem has been up to these last few weeks. The name I was hesitant to share with you was of a acquaintance he's been leveraging gambling debts with. A certain organization or person. It's hard to tell. Killraven. I didn't want to pass the letter with such a name in case it fell into other hands.
Seems a smart precaution. So he's Killraven. You think they might be behind them being whatever's happened to him?
Well, it's hard to say whether we were able to discuss anything with anyone who really knew anything, or whether it was the person that Dem was working with. They're shrouded in a certain anonymity. Like I say, it might be one person, it might be many. It's difficult to say. From what it seems, Dem came into money for many months, ages he never had, and he had been gambling as a high roller for some time. And while we might have been some of that success, I don't believe we were entirely that success. Our meeting was over a passage into the Bane Warrens. I own a bit of property that it seemed he was crawling into the earth through, and I wanted to make sure not to be seen as taking what was his, but I did have to claim it as mine. It was certainly enough that he could have been wealthier, but perhaps there was more.
Davros is. Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
No, you're good. I was gonna kind of like summarize that this conversation can go on for a little bit longer as he kind of like outlines this idea. Like he doesn't think Dem made enough money with the Twin Stars to seem so well off to this person that they were talking to about Killraven. So he feels like Dem was making money with Killraven, but he also doesn't get the sense that Dem was like in debt with Killraven either.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, Davros is kind of like as he's telling him about like the Kill Ravens and them kind of like borrowing money to gamble, and Davros is just kind of like shaking his head and yeah, that sounds about his level of stupid. Uh, still, what you told me was trying to do some good too. So if that he's been going down into the Warrens, you think there's a chance?
My bad. That's the Bane Warrens. That's kind of like the undercrypt of the city. Um,
Oh yeah,
that's
that's
kind of that's that like vagueness. There's underneath the city. There's so many layers, and it's just one of the things. Like getting into the sewers is easy. And the sewers are certainly a place to make some money. Killing rats. The Bane Warrens are essentially a place beneath the city from of old where a lot of valuable treasure was kind of like hidden away because it was potentially evil. And then there's also like a dwarven city, as well as there's also an elven city. So there's a lot of like buried underneath Tolis things to find. But the Bane Warrens are different than the Warrens. Um, but yeah, like
yeah. Sorry, that's what I meant for him to say. Yeah, obviously he knows he's in the Warrens now. Yeah, so but essentially he was thinking like he meant to be as like so you think it is possible you think he might have gone down there and uh, something happened or you think it's these yeah the kill ravens took him if yeah
my hunch is that Killraven was not not the root of Dem's problems. As far as we can all tell, he was doing something for himself, and with the I feel like just the way I said that was kind of wrong, but like kind of to say, as far as we can tell, he seemed to be operating for himself and Ninor at the time. I think it might be dangerous, but you could inquire about the Kill Raven as a father. But it is unpredictable how that could turn moment by moment. There's no way to know that you would be safe. There's no way to know anyone contacting them would be safe. But again, I don't believe that is the path to follow with your son.
all right I suppose I'll leave him alone for now you said you thought you think maybe Dem was I mean I did send him to go check in on Ninor don't know what happened in the interim obviously what happened after they, or even if they met, given Ninor's uh, unfortunate passing. But afraid I'm at a loss, I suppose, unless unless your men have learned anything about where he might have been heading. Anyone who might have seen him these last few weeks.
So this is kind of the holding pattern that I feel like. I think the roles to see what Erwin and Mukhtar, that was that like 29 and like 6 or whatever at the start.
Okay, yeah.
Um that's kind of like a rough uh moving forward point. And I feel like we had it pretty solid that Dem had kind of left things pretty close to his chest. So I'm tempted to say that maybe like one of them has pulled back information that Dem was last seen by some pale dogs. But I don't even know if that's kind of a stretch, whether this should go cold um, and leave you kind of like with potentials of like maybe hiring somebody who's like an actual private investigator versus just 2 people who are tracking him, um, or whether to say that that's the route. But I feel like leaving it to the pale dogs as a potential lead is the only way to kind of have like a continuance right now. And again, that's just because of like kind of the randomness of um, 2 roles kind of being low at the same time.
I like that. I mean, yeah, I mean, but maybe that also gives him, so maybe now he's thinking, okay, I've looked myself, I haven't been able to find anything, but maybe so now I need to maybe maybe there's some other jobs I can take on, um, you know, like adventuring jobs,
Oh
earn a bit of
well,
coin, hire somebody.
with a lack of threads to pull, there is the potential of delving down into the Bane Warrens. As I said, we originally met with him having discovered a certain entryway of interest. And that was something he was investigating also with the sewers and the cover of the rats, as if there were any potential threats of others discovering our find. That would be a solid place to start to build some coin for yourself. Otherwise, um, and I think the other thing that's kind of like sitting from like Malchin, which was Chris, is that there's like a slaver um organization operating out of the docks of Tolus. Um and that's kind of moving towards, like a different a different kind of like investigation that you can go forward with. And it's like, already has the potentials of, if your son's missing, you might by happenstance find information looking for those who disappear people.
Yeah, so I'm thinking. maybe Davros, maybe he has some like some other guild mates who have spoken about going into the sewers to earn a bit of extra coin, like for the rat bounties. Um, so I think that would probably be the first thing that would come to mind is, all right, maybe I could, if I can earn some quick money and maybe put up a reward or hire somebody, to continue the search. That would kind of be what he would be leaning towards. Maybe with the idea that of like, if he could also in the future maybe, um, if he's heard about this slaver organization in the docks. But I think um, without knowing, without having any particular reason to think that Dem has been like captured by slavers, I don't think that would be his initial thought to go investigate that. And partly that's because I know what happened to Dem, like, so I don't want to be like, oh yeah, of course I'll go investigate the slavers. But I think it makes more sense to him, like, okay, he's thinking like, okay, if I can raise some quick cash and put up a reward or hire an investigator, the sewers, maybe he's heard of people doing that. And also, it seems like Dem had gone down there, so that would probably be what he would gravitate towards.
Gotcha. So are you thinking, um, like use a fellow guilder as you have like a sidekick in mind already?
No, that was more of just for, yeah, I don't think, I didn't have a particular sidekick in mind. I
Gotcha.
mean, I could, come up with one, just like basically like an old guilder friend that he could call on, but um,
Well, it's up to you there. If you want to create the sidekick, you can tell me their name. Um, if you want to take someone who's currently essentially one of the members of uh, the Twin Star Marauders here in the tavern, I would say maybe somebody more like physically adept would make a solid. You already know them as a guilder of the like Smith's Guild. Versus like if you wanted somebody who is more magically inclined, perhaps that's somebody you pick up here from the Marauders.
yeah, we'll stick in somebody a little more, like, maybe somebody a bit more stealthy, a bit more a better sense of direction. Um, Someone with a bit more kind of experience, maybe.
You want like a ranger?
Yeah, maybe, yeah, something like that would work. Yeah.
So I would say that would definitely fall into bringing either Erwin or Mukhtar, as far as like people from here would go.
Yeah, I think that, and I think that, yeah, that makes more sense then, because he'd have to, in order to find his old friend, and maybe having to go all the way back to the guild. Like if there's someone right here who he can essentially kind of lean on and take with him, that I think that's what he would be. Um, that's what he would go with.
Gotcha. Looks like the tracker is the like classically basic um ranger. The other
Yeah,
one's the
sounds good.
Beastmaster, and I'm just inclined to give you the tracker instead.
Yeah, I think, yeah, tracker sounds good. Do you think maybe now might be a good time to take a quick break?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, if you want to take a break, go for it.
All right, yeah, I'm just gonna make a little bit of some more coffee and stuff. So yeah, we'll be back in like maybe 5. Okay, I'm back.
Word. If you want to take another minute, I'm preparing a new map.
Oh yeah,
Um,
no, you're good. Take as much time as you need. Yep.
I gotcha. I feel kind of stupid, but I like the idea of leaving like not me rolling dice roll stuff like for you. But it was part of what I was like concerned about is I was like I didn't actually plan for the contingency of if you rolled low. with each of them. And I like thought of it as like a Murphy's Law thing. Like if I do this, it's pretty much guaranteed he's gonna roll like shit, and then you did.
Right. But if you had planned it, then I would have rolled high.
Right. Well, and part of what I was thinking is like I don't want to like chase like the red herring of sending you after Killraven, but that was what I basically sent. One of them would be finding that as the lead. And I thought that would be, I don't know, kind of like an interesting way of potentially being a red herring. But it was part of what I was thinking is it was like, look, I feel like I think I wrote down Mukhtar was the second one. So he was like going after the Killraven information. And I don't know. It was just one of the things I thought it would make for an interesting potential plot point. And then obviously it's just like, oh, I mean, I spent time like creating a map to be like a potential underground place for you to go after. And I never once actually contemplated the fact that like without railroading you, I wasn't going to send you there.
Yeah, I mean, because well, I'm open with Davros to anything. I mean, obviously he's interested in finding his son, but if the trail goes cold, then you know,
Yeah, and I kind of like that idea as well that like the trail does go cold. So that's like the decision he has to make is like, what do I do with this?
yeah. I mean, he could just go wandering the Warrens and just being like essentially just yeah, but um,
And I did say that one part wrong. Technically, the thing Chris had gone after was that this group is um, oh man, what is it? It's kids that are marked. Um, I don't know. I've got it in like the guild stuff, but I'm like, oh shit. I don't even know if Chris necessarily knows that it's slavers right now, or if it's actually just like that marked kids thing.
oh, kind of like the thing that the Doom uh the Doomsayer was saying, like about the mark of. I feel like the guy who was kind of ranting when Davros during the fire was speaking about something like that too.
That is actually precisely what it is. But that's why it's so perfect. Like from Davros's point of view, that guy is psychotic. But like from the very meta level of all of this, like that's actually one of the things that's happening in Tolus.
Right. So if Dav somehow stumbles upon that, maybe it clicks in his head about oh, maybe that guy was ranting, wasn't completely nuts, but maybe it doesn't. I mean, he might just completely have forgotten it. Like, but if it's something that comes up, then we can leave that to a die roll too. I'm good with that.
Yeah. Well, that's part of what I actually like about using a place like Tolus because it's so well established that there's a bunch of different shit going on. You just don't necessarily need to focus on any of it at any given time. You can just as well ignore a lot of things as you could bite and take the thread. Because it's like a city of 100,000 people. Like, there's a lot going on that you don't need to worry about.
Right. Right.
But it's also one of those things. It's like with all world building. Like, world building, in my kind of like take on it, if you're going to world build like a homebrew, you just build right in front of the players. Whereas like there's there's no reason to necessarily just limit to building in front of you guys. But at the same time, that's where I can give you stuff that you don't necessarily need to ever worry about. Alrighty, are you there right now? Excellent. Alrighty. One thing I love about Owlbear Radio is that I opened another tab to mess with that map, so I didn't have to show you. So theoretically, that should be a blank screen for you right now. All blacked out. Well, pretty much all blacked out. I can see a little bit where I've missed.
Yeah, just that one tiny little corner in the bottom right. Yep. Otherwise, blank screen.
Yeah. So, as far as the sewers go in Tolus, by and large, they are east to west. They all go basically downhill towards the actual bay. Yeah. They all go downhill towards the bay. I said, yeah, east to west, as in their like direction is that way. But east is downhill, and west is effectively no, I said that opposite. Holy shit. East is to the right, correct?
Yeah, so they run west to east.
Yeah, west to east. East is downhill. Holy shit. Yeah, I got real turned around right there. I'm like looking at news and I'm like, wait, that doesn't actually tell me which way it goes. So yeah. The spire is uphill to the west. But the big, largest sewers are all east or running west to east and dumping into the Bay of Tolus. There are other sewers that interconnect them that are north south. Some of them are like officially made, some of them are effectively like side tunnels that are not necessarily made by like engineers of Tolus. So that's one little bit of information. I'm not sure if I've shared it with you every single time you've gone into the sewers, but it is something that most people would have a somewhat understanding of, especially the closer you are to the river, the like heavier flow of the actual water that's like cleaning out the sewers. But it's not unheard of for the sewers to essentially get backed up and send people down there. But those are like officially government sanctioned jobs.
Gotcha. Okay.
When Davros decides to head in, oh, I guess on some level, do you have a thought? Would you like to take Erwin? Let's say Erwin is like a female ranger and Mukhtar is a male ranger, but otherwise both of them are humans.
Yeah, I don't think he doesn't have any preference.
All right, so for the sake of it, we'll say we'll go down with Mukhtar with you.
Sure. And is this are we going down immediately or is this the next day?
It's early enough in the day. If you have things to do, you are welcome to. There's no reason not to say though that this wouldn't be like Sunday as well. It's up to you.
Yeah, maybe he would just take a short rest essentially before heading down to try to kind of recover a bit from the wound he took.
Oh yeah, that time with Kalimtas can easily be a short rest.
Okay, so yeah, okay. Yeah, but then yeah, otherwise yeah, he'll be ready to go. Yeah, might as well make it yeah, same day.
So the Warrens don't technically have sewers, but you can essentially go back to the Guildsman district and enter somewhere in that district. Do you have any thoughts about where you would enter, or is it more or less you're just going to go for it? Did it pique your interest when you were kind of told that on some level Dem was already kind of searching to see if there were any connections with like his map and like a certain part of the sewers? Um, any thoughts about where you would want to enter?
Yeah, so I guess if Kelimtos if Kelimtos shares the location about the place where Dem initially went in, then maybe Davros would think, okay, well, maybe if we find a sewer entrance near there and go in there. Um, if Kalimtas doesn't share that location, then he would probably just think essentially, okay, one place in the guildsman in the district is as good as another. Maybe he would just plan on going, heading back towards his own place and going in somewhere close to there, thinking maybe, you know, that's the other. Maybe them did that too, but um, yeah, basically because I think because Clemtos told him that Dem had found a place down and gone delving. Um, and so Davros is thinking maybe if he investigated the sewers near there, then maybe if we go down in that area, is as good a place as
So
any.
I think we originally put it around Draper's Row and Smoke Street. I think the original entrance into the Bane Warrens was between Vanguard and Smoke Street.
I'm trying to think. Trying to remember. It was somewhere in that general area. Yeah.
I think it was kind of there. I think we said the back alley was basically roughly around that house. And then I think we put like a pub around that corner. All of that stuff I think is just kind of minute details. I don't think any of it's necessarily nearly that important. Um, but I think that's a solid place if you'd like to go back to. I don't think there's any reason to say Kalimtas wouldn't share the information with you, where you could indeed head for that.
Yeah. In that case, I think that's where. Yeah, that's where he would go.
Oh, I see what I did. I started with the map instead of. I think originally I had the battle map set up as 2, and this was the map that you were carrying. But it's too late now. I've already got this set up for us to play. Let me have you roll a. Is it a D8? At 6? No, a D10, please.
Seven.
Alrighty. You should see in the top left corner, I've revealed a little crossroad.
Yep.
And I wish I remember who I made Mukhtar look like last time. If I didn't just drop your icon, that's going to be Mukhtar.
Yeah. Nope. That's not me. So.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, I totally forgot who I dropped his Kalim toss because when I saw your guy, I was like, he looks a little brawnier than I was thinking Kalim toss was, but okay. So, but yeah, so Mukhtar will follow you into the sewers as you guys kind of drop down. Um, Mukhtar carries a bow, but otherwise can light up a torch to kind of give you guys a little bit of sight. Let me start it off with roll a d8 for us.
Sure. And I think if it's not too late, Davros would have, now that he knows he's going into the sewers, he probably would have stopped at home and picked up a couple more of his kind of supplies that he hadn't brought with him. So
100%. You're definitely welcome to have whatever supplies you'd like.
yeah, so like some of the more torches, and he has a few javelins, so he would have picked those up. Yeah, so a little more prepared going in. Yeah, D8 you said, right?
Yes, please.
All right, 2.
Excellent. No worries there. So as you guys kind of like pop down into the sewers, you can look left. You see 20, 30 feet in that direction, nothing. Can look right 20, 30 feet in that direction, nothing. You can see maybe 15, 20 feet in the north-south direction. Nothing. Effectively, if you wanted to go left, like west, or go north, I'm going to move you into the other corner of the same map. But you are welcome to explore this map. What would you like to do, sir?
Yeah, I think he will head. He will head east. Kind of almost more or less at random. Not really sure what he's looking for down here aside from rats. So I think he would. Um, yeah, I think then maybe rather than going into the water, maybe kind of turning and continuing south down this. This is like a little kind of walking, walkway or ledge area.
Yeah, so like in the north-south ones, the actual like ledge on the sides is far less meaningful, as those will rarely have running water. The west to east are far more likely that at any given time there's like actual flowing water, if not like at least a trickling of a stream. Whereas, like, again, the north south ones, those are regularly pretty much just stagnant.
Gotcha. Okay, so maybe in that case he will move to continue on to the east, kind of climbing down and then climbing back up the other side.
Yeah, and I'd say in the long run, it's not necessarily that it has to be terribly deep in between these two, and it certainly wouldn't be difficult to actually like get a little bit of a running start and kind of leap over as well. Um, Probably pretty steady signs that at least like with this one, it might be deeper to your left than it was like behind you, as this is meant to carry more water. But yeah, so you guys can kind of move kind of the odd way of how big the map was when I revealed it, is I didn't really. Can I cut away a part? It's out. Nope. Bam. That kind of did it. So kind of moving forward here, you do see this area kind of continues ahead of you, leads like about another like 30 or so feet, kind of the distance of your actual kind of torches ahead. But it seems like this has kind of a flow in that direction. Um,
Yeah, I think maybe continuing on. Maybe kind of looking towards Mukhtar, like you know, let me know if you spot any tracks. Not much for tracking myself, but otherwise, kind of continuing on to the east, maybe um, look, maybe keeping an eye out on the like the stonework, Davros, and for any signs of either like someplace where like weak where someone might have broken through, or an actual door, or I feel like Davros probably hasn't really been down in the sewers, so he's not really sure. He's kind of wandering blind a little bit, not really sure what to expect or what to look for.
Let me get a D20 from you, and you can use uh, Mukhtar as kind of like an investigator. So as you kind of call for him to like, keep you up to speed as you guys are moving, he kind of like looks down. You can kind of see as you guys like leap across this way. It seems there's some normal sized rat movement here, as well as others that are much, much larger. And he like kind of like compares his hand to like the size of some of these other like paw prints that are like subtly in the mud. But when he points them out, like what almost looks like just kind of like the flow of how like the mud kind of like dried in the area, you can see as he like points it out, like the little bits of indents where the claws were at the tip of this, and like what looks almost like the flow of water, like the waves, is actually kind of like the actual like outline of kind of this paw, and you can sort of make out what he's pointing to as he shows these off to you. But you kind of see as he's like pointing, it seems that some of these larger prints, some of the smaller ones as well, are following along in the direction that you guys are going.
Yeah, so Davros is kind of like, I'm sure he's heard like stories about like some of the bigger rat things, but kind of shaking his head, and no wonder they're offering, what was it, 3 gold? What's it up to? 3 gold a tail now. But thinking, that seems like they're on the right track. Then he will continue heading down to the east.
So as you look ahead of you all and kind of continue down in this direction, you do see as the everything kind of like pushes forward and pushes on, and around kind of like 15 or 20 feet to your right, where you see that darker portion, you can see parts of the actual like ledge has kind of like fallen out and has kind of like tumbled into the actual like flow of where the water is. It's not like pulled all of it away, but there is increased erosion at this point. And when you kind of like investigate that wall, there's like liquid coming out of the actual, I don't know. Yeah. I'm down in the south. We like don't have basements down here. I remember up in Ohio, and I'm sure in New York, um like a lot of times people have basements where the ceiling, like the liquid barrier, is no longer good, and you can always see that wall that's like always soaking wet almost.
So
And
yep,
this wall is like sweating like that almost, where it's like percolating water.
yeah. It's like this is always damp. Yeah. Um, yeah. So it seems like maybe there's uh, space behind this, or um, yeah. So I think he's going to start looking at the wall, essentially, kind of like hefting his maul. Um, I was like, maybe there's a something behind this that he can try to break through to.
Uh, do you want to like tap on the wall and like listen to it? Is that kind of what you're doing?
Yeah, I guess kind of looking. Yeah, yeah.
So let me go for, depending on how subtle you would like to be, you can do like a sleight of hand, and that's you just kind of like tapping on it. If you'd like to actively like hit it, you can do a perception at advantage.
I don't think he's probably being particularly subtle.
Gotcha. So I'd say perception at advantage here.
All right. So that will be a
Yeah.
17.
So that 17's gonna crush it, yeah. So a lot like almost like doing a stud finder. where you're kind of like tapping. You've got like thunk, thunk, and then like the ring of hollow stone. And you can kind of like see like there's not a wide area where the stone is like thin and hollow, but you can certainly tell the difference between like an area that is solid stone and an area that if you put enough effort into, you can probably bash a hole through and potentially find an entrance into something.
Yeah, so I think Davros is gonna like look towards Mukhtar, just be like, all right, keep an eye out, and kind of focusing in on that. He is going to, um, I think again, hefting the maul, kind of using that almost like a sledgehammer kind of thing. Um, Probably like kind of like averting his head to kind of you know try to not have any of the like maybe stone chips or anything flying into his head, but essentially just like now that he's kind of located a spot he thinks he might be able to bash through, he's just gonna start going at it again, like no subtlety at all.
Gotcha. You can go for a strength or athletics here. Um, you're using bludgeoning. I want to say just go for advantage. Or no, no. You know what? Roll an attack roll for me.
Sure. 16.
Gotcha. And let me see damage.
Should be 9.
So first solid big hit, you like clunk into this, and you do knock out like a chunk of um the actual stonework, where you have like a very quick kind of like pressurization change. I think lighter pressure where you're at, so you'd almost feel like the exhaust of this air as it kind of like blows over you has a little bit of like kind of like stench of decay. It's hard to really feel a whole lot of the difference as you are in a sewer. But I would say like it's that difference of like there's almost like a continual flow of water and somewhat flow of air through this as it is an open system versus you're opening up something that's like a sealed container. So it's almost that like stale air and kind of like the stale smell from within as you crack this hole through. Do you want to put a torch up to it and take a look inside, or do you want to swing away and try to make this hole bigger so you could like get your shoulders through like the widest part of your body?
Yeah, I think Davros is just gonna swing again, trying to
Gotcha.
widen the hole.
Uh, Go for another attack at advantage on this one.
All right, 24.
Solid hit still, and I feel like regardless, the damage is going to be enough on this one. Yeah,
10 damage.
9. Okay, 10. Yeah. So yeah, that definitely busts through enough that you've got a pretty quick entryway here. At present, I'd say that's enough that you can at least see kind of like the first bit of this area. Um, as you first bust it open, you can kind of see like an entryway inside of there. You don't immediately hear anything from within, and once you actually like kind of like step in with a torch, you can kind of see that there's some sort of tunnels in this area. They seem to go in 3 different directions from where you are. um, and you can kind of see like a little bit of water having kind of collected almost immediately like on the other side of this. You can kind of see like where the stone is again like dripping from over your head.
Yeah, so I think Davros is going to at this point kind of he'll light up his own torch as well, and stepping inside with Mukhtar, kind of looking around, almost kind of like trying to like almost like picking at random. I think he's going to go at let's go this way, kind of pointing to his left, so back, essentially back towards the west a little bit.
To the west there. Gotcha.
Yeah, and he'll start heading that way. Not trying
Roll
to
a
be
d10 for me.
8.
Yeah, so as you kind of like head into that corner, you see that there's some like refuse left here. You can see a lot of different kind of like scraps of this and that. Um, Seems like some things could be like weapons, some things could be like clothing. You spot some bones inside of there. Let me get you to roll an investigation if you would like to look through it. Otherwise, this room seems to be predominantly empty.
Yeah, I guess he'll take a minute to just kind of look through. That is a 0. He is not
Gotcha.
finding
Yeah,
anything.
quick look over everything. This is all just like trash. Very much kind of like a pack rat kind of thing. You just like get this kind of feeling like this is just a collection of anything that could have been picked up effectively out of the trash.
Yeah, so kind of yeah, with that he'll kind of return and then all right, and then essentially point down towards the south, and start heading that way. Um,
Oops, that was not my push to talk button. Heading into the south, you see another tunnel that continues on to the west, and a narrower tunnel that continues on to the southeast.
so I think he is going to head to the west again. Um,
Gotcha. Heading into the west, let me have you roll a d6.
2.
So as you move to the west, you uh, follow this kind of like tunnel meandering to the west until you see as it kind of like ends in like a little bit of a stair, kind of like descending. And you see like just kind of a smooth wall ahead of you. It just kind of stops. And there are, I'd say you can see the outline of effectively like a doorway that is cut into the stone. Effectively, you are on the backside of a secret door.
yeah, so I think at seeing that, Davros will maybe for the first time maybe try to be a little more kind of stealthy as he tries to kind of move up towards the. Well, it's probably pretty thick stone, but he will try to just kind of like put his ear against it, maybe put his hand against it, and kind of try and listen. Um,
Gotcha. Roll a d12 for me and then a d20 for a perception check.
all right, so it's a 4 on the d12.
Excellent.
Perception will be that's a 3.
Throw your ear up to the wall, and as you kind of listen for a moment, silence. Don't really hear anything at all from the other side of that rock.
Yeah, so he's gonna kind of looking back towards Mukhtar, and he's looking back towards the doors, like, well, it must have made it secret for a reason, and he's going to try and then see if he can open it from this side.
Gotcha. Yeah, when you go to kind of like push on it, like a little bit of pressure. Oops. Oh, my bad. When you go to push on it, like a little bit of pressure, kind of like slides the door like away from you before it like pushes back, and you can kind of feel like a lip around the doorway, and then you can like slide the doorway backwards, and it actually like hinges open before you have about like a it doesn't come like all the way open, but like say a 3 foot wide kind of crack in the stone that you can slip through and see outside into the sewer.
Yeah, so he'll sidle out. So then coming out back into the sewer.
And from there, you could easily see 30 feet in either direction. You can probably just make out the actual corner to the north. And I'd say you're probably a little bit too far to make out the corner to the south. But in the dim light, yeah, I think it's a little too far for the one to the south to make it out. Yeah. But inside of the dim light, you can make out the cross in the sewer to the north of you.
Gotcha. So I think he's going to go to try to, now that he knows this door is here, he's going to try to essentially close it back up and see like just how difficult it is to spot from this side. And he's trying to make at the same time kind of make a mental note of where it is. He doesn't really have anything to kind of like mark it or anything.
Roll a.
Well, I guess he does have his smith's tools. Could he essentially try to like chisel like I don't know, maybe like something, some sort of it's almost like I'm almost thinking like some sort of like guild mark or symbol, something that like might not everyone might recognize, but that might, if he stumbles across this place again, he might jog his memory or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, on some level, you would have your maker's mark. That's probably the thing that would come to mind that is easiest to like hide in plain sight. Um,
Yeah, so maybe
it's
he
not
wouldn't do uh sorry, go ahead.
it's not like unnoticeable, but that is the type of thing where like most people who are not in the production industry could easily miss it. And for people who are definitely not like Smith Guilders, it's effectively like Latin to them. Like a maker's mark just looks like a mark unless you're an expert in translating who the different producers are.
Gotcha. Yeah. So maybe he wouldn't do it like right on the secret door, but maybe like on the wall next to it. And it may be that depending on how long it is, if he ever gets down here again, he might completely forget why he did it. But in the moment, it seems like maybe a good thing to do.
All right. Do you think you would do it across the way from it? Do you think you would do it north of it? Do you think you would do it north and south of it? How do you think you would mark it?
He'd probably just do it in one place. So I'm thinking maybe he would kind of walk it like maybe about a few feet to the north, and then on the stone up here to
Gotcha.
his right. Yeah.
Like 5 feet to the north,
Yeah.
or like 10 feet?
Yeah. Probably only 5 feet. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't see any reason why you can't take that time. to basically place that mark there, make it a little bit easier for yourself to spot in the future.
And then once he's kind of completed that, he will kind of move back in, go to probably close the secret door back behind him, and then suggest to Mukhtar that we kind of continue exploring, and probably he'll head back to the east, and then with the idea to explore that narrower southern passage. I think that he said there was as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, so as you continue off into that direction, oh, I changed what I was on. Nope, don't want to do that. That's gonna show. I swear, moments ago I was doing this as if I knew how to use Owlbear Rodeo. Why is it not doing it now? I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Yeah, I don't know why I can't do the like little cuts like I was doing with the shapes. Um, I thought I finally like mastered Owlbear Rodeo for a moment there. So I can't show you like the little bit of the room, but I can basically reveal that you kind of like turn around that one and find a pretty big like open kind of area here. You can hear trickling of water coming from beyond your sight. You can see that there's another kind of corridor off in like the southeast of that area. That's kind of like just inside of the dim light of your torch.
All right, so yeah, Davros is going to um, start moving in. And I think he will probably head as you know for the trying to follow the sound of the water. Um, when trying to he wants to, I guess he kind of wants to see, like, is this back to the sewers, or is this maybe some other source? So we could probably be trying to follow that sound.
So, kind of moving through this area, you make it about like another like 40 or 50 feet before you kind of like edge towards like the end of this little like open cavern. And you can see ahead of you, there is indeed some sort of like lake that water is like trickling down from overhead. And it seems to be kind of collecting in, maybe lake is too big of a word, but a large pool that kind of continues beyond like the 30 or so feet of bright light to your northeast and beyond like the 30 or so feet of bright light to your southeast. You can see kind of the edges of it with your dim light to the northeast of you, but to the south, your dim light doesn't really carry on beyond where this water seems to go. And like this whole thing just has that kind of like, I would say you probably even have like stalactites and stalagmites in this room. That this is more of a natural kind of cavern, that this water flow is kind of like that calcifying effect of it, almost like looks like the teeth of a cavern in this place.
Gotcha. So I think Davros is going to move to approach the the edge of this pool. Um, and I think he's actually going to. He might kind of like maybe go down on a knee and maybe like just like almost like take a sniff first, and then like put his hand to go like actually cup some of the water, and almost like try and taste a little bit, see if it seems like
Check to
clean.
see if it's like fresh and clean.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, go for a perception here.
It's a 5. No, 7. Straight. Perception's flat.
I would say you don't get any like sense of like a salt water or like brackish water from it. Um, Maybe you wonder if it's kind of like hard water because you do see like the stalactites and the stalagmites, where there's like calcium in it. But I think your first perception of it, your first impression, this water's clean.
Yeah, so I think he will. Seems all right enough to him. He might, you know, he's got his water skin, which probably is probably pretty full, but he might take like a couple like scoopful, handfuls of the water just to kind of slake an immediate thirst. And is the water fairly flat? Is there any sort of movement suggesting any sort of current?
I don't think you would see any currents. You might see little bits of kind of like the wake from your own hand movements inside of the water. But overall, I would say probably not. Much more than just kind of those little like ruffles. Um, but it is cold, probably nearing kind of like icy cold, compared to like the water uh in your skin is probably much warmer. This has that kind of like, I don't know, underground refrigeration kind of level of thing. You are probably
Oh, might have cut out there.
Oh, my bad. I was just kind of saying like the water is kind of cold, and it does have kind of like a little bit of like an icy feel. Um, that might be the biggest reason to say that you would want to drink some of it or maybe use some of it in your water bottle is because it has that like natural cooling effect from being underneath the earth and basically at like a steady, like 60 degrees instead of, you know, um, 60 or 70 degree. Well, I think it's a northern city, so it is probably colder this time of year, but effectively saying like this is natural refrigeration underneath the ground here.
Right, gotcha. Yeah, so after taking a bit of a drink and um, kind of looking, he's going to kind of look to the southwest and the northeast, and kind of with maybe like the torch in his offhand, kind of point off towards the northeast and start essentially kind of following, heading up that way, kind of following along the shoreline, for lack of a better word.
Gotcha. And this is going, you said, to the southwest or to the
Uh,
northeast? Okay.
to the northeast, yeah.
So as you kind of follow this edge of, again, like this kind of weird underground shoreline, you kind of find another little like bulbous cavern is a little bit kind of like northwest. You can see a little bit to the east is another little cavern across like the actual water there. And then there's another opening that kind of goes to the south along that other side. But other than that, I think you'd probably pick up kind of the edge of the cavern to that southwest there. Um, and yeah,
So I think Davros is probably smart enough to think of, like, if this water seems fairly clean, then maybe it might be used by other creatures for a water source. So he's going to kind of again suggest maybe we take a look for any sort of obvious signs of tracks around this area.
Let me get a d20 from you for. Uh, damn, I already forgot his name.
Well, Mukhtar, yeah,
Mukhtar.
that's. I think he's got. Um, yeah, just that's a two.
Um, so maybe kind of like bending down. If this is a water source, and we are tracking creatures that pass diseases, this water is likely just as contaminated as they are. I see signs, but they're far too muddled to be able to figure out what is going where and how soon or recently.
Davros is gonna give a side eye to the water, and it's like, now you tell me. Well, but he'll otherwise be like, all right, let's keep going then, and he'll probably move to the north just to kind of look around this cavern. Maybe see if like it's similar to the first one with like there's signs of like detritus or any sort of like maybe like makeshift nests kind of thing.
Let me get a D8 from you.
That's a one.
Ooh, finally. I've been rolling for my own chance at random encounters, but I've also been giving you the opportunity as well. I'm just like, I can't believe how low I can roll sometimes. And then other times, it's like, yep, no resting for you. Alrighty. So when you come around the corner of this next little area, and kind of like look for this connection, almost like back towards where you all came in, you're very quickly going to spot a little bit of movement in some of the trash that is like along one of these walls, to like kind of the uh, west of where you're kind of looking. Um, and within a moment, one of these creatures kind of leaps out towards you. And we're going to go for an initiative here. If you would be so kind as to move yourself kind of towards that whoops, up towards that border of where it was unrevealed. Yeah. You and Mukhtar are going to kind of start right there about that corner. He will follow behind you, um, but is otherwise in your control at this point. And then I should have left some of those hidden. I always forget that it's not Roll20 where I have a DM layer.
So it'll be a 23 for initiative.
That will assist you greatly. I can pretty much guarantee that you can start off with the initiative. What would you like to do as you spot like the let's say those first three immediately to your left are what you spot the movement.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I think Davros is just going to, well, this is what we came down here for, and he's gonna kind of move forward and kind of heading right for the nearest thing, kind of like maybe like trying to get a little momentum with the maul, and before swinging it almost like maybe almost like a baseball bat, or like a golf club, kind of sweeping motion towards the first of these creatures. Oh, he would have dropped his torch along the way because he has to. The maul's a two-handed weapon, so but that should be a 21.
Gotcha. 21, 100% is gonna hit.
For 6 damage.
Gotcha. So as you smack into that rat, just kind of like crushing the back of its skull, you like it would expect this thing to stop moving, but it is still effectively like leaping towards you, trying to bite into you.
All right. So that will be surprising for Davros, seeing that they didn't just like drop this thing. But Mukhtar, I think, is going to kind of moving as well. He is also going to have to drop his torch to take up his bow, and I think he would probably be firing at one of the other things. As he sees Davros swinging at the nearest rat, so he would probably go ahead and fire at the maybe the one to the left of that one, the orange uh, border rat. If that's one of the ones that he can see.
Gotcha.
Ooh, that's a crit.
Gotcha. I think he does a D8, so you can roll 2d8 plus 4.
So that's a total of 10 damage. It's a fairly low crit there, but I'll take it.
Oh, whoops! I shouldn't actually delete that. Uh, yeah, I guess I'll just have to keep it on my clipboard to know that it's dead. But yeah, that one, the arrow kind of like cuts right through its eyeball and just like pierces right into the rat, and it just goes right to brainstem, immediately dead. Um, gonna have the next two, one of which is the blue one that's really wounded, and then the red one kind of charges up on you. I actually rolled for these two to be on the same initiative. They are going to act together. Um, Still can't both get the pack tactics. Oh man, I could be cheap and let the first one be the red one. They're not intelligent enough to do that. Yeah, the blue one doesn't have to move to get to you. There's no way that it's gonna like wait to let the red one attack you. So the blue one, 14 is going to miss you as it tries to like bite back at you, swinging your hammer at it. And then the red one with advantage is going to try to bite into you as it's kind of like waiting for the blue one to distract you, leaping onto you. And it looks like it's going to be a miss, but it might roll back to that 16. No, it's like the 8's going to be 12 to hit you as those two start to leap onto you. They're biting for you, but it's just enough that they're like sliding around on your skin, trying to get purchase on you while you're kind of like moving at speed. And you can kind of see as the other three from above are going to kind of like rile themselves together, and they're starting to like move and kind of react to this like new threat in the environment. But otherwise, it's going to go back up to you. What would you like to do?
Yeah, so Davros is kind of like yeah, dodging these couple bite attacks is going to try and finish off the one that he hit the first time. So another swing of his maul at the badly wounded rat. 13.
Solid hit there. Pretty much guaranteed kill on that one.
8 damage. And I think Mukhtar is going to fire another arrow, probably at the other one that kind of came up. So I guess the red rat. I believe they've got a +6, so a 20 to hit.
Solid hit, piercing through.
And then it's I think 1d8 +4, so 8 damage.
Kind of like piercing through like the back of its neck. This rat like still continues to like gnaw into you, despite having like an arrow that like must have come within inches of its spine, but seems to have not quite killed it. The purple rat is going to run in. I should roll just in case. Yeah, it's going to be on you, so it will have advantage at present. Looking like a 14 to hit will not be enough. That is to the red rat, which is going to attack you. Looking like those are both going to be misses. Yeah, and then who's going next there? Green. Will be on Mukhtar, and then yellow is gonna go for Mukhtar as well. So green's just gonna be a straight attack. Yellow's gonna have its advantage as they swarm onto Mukhtar. Green like leaps for him, and as he dodges out of the way, the yellow one is going to leap onto his ankles and kind of like try to crawl up his pant legs, looking like it might have a chance, but it's going to turn to the 7. I think that's going to be a big ol' miss. And it's going to go back around to Davros. You've got one injured rat on you and another rat, and then Mukhtar has 2 like full healthy rats.
Yeah, so I think Davros kind of a couple more rats swarming, couple others going after rushing for Mukhtar. Is going to Davros kind of like shout out like hang on Mukhtar and damn these rats, and is going to go into a rage as he swings his maul again at the rat that Mukhtar wounded. So I think that was the red rat with the arrow, and try to finish that one off. Yeah, so 19. I believe.
Solid hit, same idea. Can't really live through that. So
Yeah, and I think he is going to. Yeah, so he goes into the race, does that, and I think he's going to start moving back towards Mukhtar. So probably taking an opportunity attack from the purple rat.
That's an interesting one. Because they're tiny with a 5-foot reach. I'm not sure if you're actually leaving that one's reach.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't really see that as leaving its reach.
Okay. Yeah, but and anyway, yeah. Anyway, so he's rushing back to try to help Mukhtar. And Mukhtar with these on him. Assuming he just has the bow. I think he will
I'm
essentially.
always perfectly happy with letting them have a close combat weapon as well. You can do more damage with your bow with the D8, but he can do what, like a short sword with a +4 to hit and like a D6 damage, but no. Well, wait, a short sword would be finesse, so he could have the +6 and +2 to damage, +4 to damage. Yeah, he could do a short sword with the same stats, +6, +4.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think yeah. So he would, as these kind of rats start to swarm him, as he would drop the bow, pulling out the short sword and trying to stab through the. Let's go for the yellow rat here. Yeah, 17. That should hit or plus.
Solid hit. Don't even have to roll the damage because I rolled for 3 hit points. As you stab through this rat, it just immediately dies. This one was perhaps the least healthy of all of these rats.
Gotcha. And yeah, I think in other ways he's kind of like moving a little bit, but basically staying in combat here. And that will be all for Mukhtar and Davros.
So I think most of the threat of this is avoided. We're just going for the first of these against Davros, second of these against Mukhtar here. They're not being strategic. They're not recognizing that they have pack tactics to go after you. Almost went for the 19 on Davros, but they're both just kind of like nibbling away. And at this point, are next to no threats. I don't think you've attacked either of these, but you have the green and the purple remaining here.
Yeah, I think those are the two we haven't gone after. So I think Davros, so yeah, will go to kind of swing at the purple rat with a 15 for 13 damage.
I rolled 11 hit points. Solid smack as you hit that one with the maul. The body of that thing just like pops like a zit. Uh, and Mukhtar has the green one still to go.
Yeah. I'm actually he's raging, so actually yeah, so it would have been 15. I gotta remember that.
Right, gotcha.
And yeah, and Mukhtar is yeah stabbing out at the green one. Because he kind of hears the like this like squelch from Davros's maul. 14, so yeah, that should
14
hit.
hits.
And he said D6 with a short sword. Right?
Yeah, I think decent. I think that's the way to like settle the difference. It'll have 10 hit points, so 8 damage. That one survives just enough to try to bite back on him. Looking like that's going to be enough to get the hits. And what is it? I need a con 4 save from you, and then I need another Constitution saving throw from you.
All right, so a 6 on the first one.
Gotcha. So he's not going to lose a wound and go unconscious. But you will.
And 13 for the second one.
You do save against it being diseased. Oh, that's a crazy disease too. But yeah, I don't think there's any reason to say an already wounded rat that just had a few hit points over what you did can survive the other two of you. So what is that? 6 rat tails that you can collect here. I think for what it's worth, you can just write down 9 gold, and not even worry about like the actual like trading of the rat tails. And I think that's what the current price is, 3 gold a piece.
Sure. Yep. And then obviously split with Mukhtar. So 9. Gotcha. Is there a difference between price and like essentially the bounty between the smaller rats and the bigger like ratlings, rat folk?
I think part of the comedy of it is the fact that like going after other rats satisfies the bounty. But theoretically, you are looking for the like the giant rats, but no, they will pay you for rat tails. And I think that's kind of the difference of like it is a plague. All rats carry it. But the giant rats, like what these are, as well as the actual like humanoid rats, are the biggest threat because they get to be a little bit more voracious, maybe. I don't know. It's kind of a twofold thing.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. So they'll spend some time, taking the rat tails for eventual turning in for the bounty, recover the kind of the, he'll pick up the torches and we'll try to get his bows and stuff back and filthy things. And I think Davros is going to, he might go and poke around the kind of where they came out from. Like you said, there was some like refuse along the walls, just kind of poking around to see if there happens to be anything in there that catches his
Gotcha.
eye.
Do an investigation, but this time I meant to say this last time, I think, but you can use Miktar for this, so you can use a +6.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, looks that's going to settle on 12.
Yeah,
Is
18. Let me have you roll a D100 for me. Give me a second while I bring up a chart.
sure.
60.
Yep.
Roll a D3, so like a D6 divided by 2 works.
Sure. Yep. So I guess that'd be a 1.
Um, Give me another moment here, but I think roll a D3 again, please.
That will be another 1.
Okay, I probably should have already had you do this. Roll a D100 again.
54.
Alrighty. So inside of like kind of like a bunch of like rags and like there's cotton clothing and there's like it's kind of like clearly nested kind of like rat and refuse just kind of like piled up in this area. But you do spot kind of like in one of these areas a little bit nicer kind of like fabric that doesn't seem to be like tarnished by kind of like the dirt and the refuse. And as you go through it a little bit more thoroughly, you do spot that this is like a full um I don't know how to describe it without getting into the actual use of the word like padded armor. It's like that, like it's almost like a down jacket, the way it has like all of the like puff in it. Like that's what part of what like keeps the heat in it is there's place for the air to be. With like padded armor, a lot of what it does is it's like all of the layers of the fabric creates different areas that like I don't know, like part of being bulletproof is all of those layers of fabric that the bullet has to tear through. And it's crazy how good this is at stopping stuff, but you're basically finding like a really nice padded jacket in this thing. But for mechanical purposes, you can write down a +1 padded armor.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So Davros, yeah, recognizes the yeah, definitely a nice material, and oddly, given where it is, where it's been sitting, oddly free of yeah, any some of the filth that he would expect, and
Yeah, I'm not sure he's got enough experience to recognize like when it looks so nice, that's a solid sign that like it is magical. But that's one of those weird things I think sometimes. I mean, I think everybody should know at this point, like, part of why delvers delve here is there's a lot of magical stuff that sits below you. So maybe it's not that crazy to recognize as soon as you see something really nice, to recognize, like, this is why delvers delve. It's because there is piles of shit that have magical things just sitting in them.
yeah, and then I again, like I don't know how like widespread like low level magic is, but like it could even be something that I mean, if I would think like if like something like a rich person might just have like an enchanter essentially cast something that like almost like Teflon coating so that their stuff just never gets dirty. um
Yeah, pretty much precisely. This is the type of thing I would say like padded armor is definitely the type of thing that you're far more likely to have something like this for passing yourself off as being dressed very casually while still being armored.
right, so
It's not quite like wearing a silk blouse where you're wearing just a shirt, but it's definitely not the same as wearing like leather or studded leather.
right, it's like in John Wick when he goes into like the tailor and gets like the bulletproof like suit. It's like, he still looks good, but it's got some
Oh yeah, I
stopping
forgot
power.
about that. That's 100% the kind of thing that we like. That's how it translates these days, is doing the bulletproof suit. That's kind of what I was getting at is like if you look at medieval like padded armor is like the anti-bow armor of the day because the arrow would get caught up in like 11 layers of cotton instead, and that's the exact same thing as like John Wick getting the like fiber, I want to say fiberglass, but it's the, was it Teflon is the non-stick, but it's like carbon fiber. The
Yeah,
weave
yeah.
that we use in bulletproofing is effectively like the same thing that you use to make like custom body parts for a car. When you're doing like, it's crazy as fuck what makes bulletproofing. Like steel is really good for like pistol ammo, but like the actual like fabric stuff is really good for high speed. And that's like the exact thing that makes like an armor piercing arrow would get caught up in padded armor long before like a single sheet of steel would ever have a chance to stop it.
Right, yeah. And I imagine a lot of that basically, I mean, it kind of boils down to the physics of it, right? Like the damage from the arrow or the bullet is like a combination of speed and, you know, impact, and then
Yeah, it's like the faster it moves, the slower the tearing happens. So the more likely something that needs to tear can deflect it versus like steel because it's only like a single layer. The faster the thing's moving, the quicker it gets through. It's very weird to imagine, but that's kind of how those things work. The like velocity of the arrow works against it trying to get through something soft but fibrous.
right. Uh, yeah, but in any event, Davros still kind of he knows this is probably worth something, so he will go to kind of put it into his pack. Obviously, offer if we sell it, then split it with Mukhtar. Um, I think he'll probably kind of after looking through that refuse pile, he would move to the north, but I imagine then he would be able to essentially kind of confirm that was the third
Yeah.
tunnel.
As you move back around, you do find that kind of entry point that you already came in at.
Yeah, so I think then at that point he would.
When you get there, though, you are going to see a humanoid kind of rat person who's like investigating that hole. Let me have you roll. Oh man, I think it's got to be his perception.
Yeah, I mean Davros is not making any attempt to be sneaky, and he's got a torch out. So the thought that
Yeah,
that would.
I think it's gonna kind of be just as much by the time you figure out what it is up there. You've already kind of like closed in on that area, and you guys kind of just like noticing at the same time nobody's gonna have the jump on another here. It's just gonna go straight back into. I mean, for what it's worth, I can just roll his initiative because I mean your 20 just means. No, I should have you roll too. My bad. Can you roll initiative with me, please?
Yep. So that'll be an 18 then. This time around.
18? Yeah, it still works out the same way. I do feel like it's a little bit more intelligent to have you still do it. But yeah, as you kind of come up to that area, you see him kind of investigating, and it's not even clearly anything's there until you get close enough that your light kind of scatters across it, and it starts to recognize the light. That by the time the two of you kind of like turn on each other, you can decide what you would like to do. Yeah, you guys cut off the tail, so you are out of rage here. But you do have the distance. You could throw something at him, or you could close it because you're easily within the 30 feet.
Yeah, I think he would kind of like maybe like freeze for a moment as he sees this thing, and then but then kind of yeah, as they kind of like both decide in the moment, he's going to kind of let out like another yell. Moving forward, he is out of rages, so this will be and he is essentially just like almost like maybe like almost be like admiring my handiwork, kind of at towards the like the hole in the thing. But as he is swinging his maul at the rat and landing a crit.
Oh, crit doesn't bode well for me.
So that's just going to be 4d6 plus 3. That will be 20 total damage.
All right, so it has 4d6 plus 4 hit points. So I'm like, I'll roll for it and see. I only keep like 3d6 out right now, and I rolled 3 4s and a fourth 4. So I have 20 hit points, and you said you just did 20 damage.
Yep.
So yeah, as you kind of like close this distance and it like remarks the light, you close the distance just fast enough that like you're bringing down the hammer and just smashing this thing's skull. And in the instant that it's recognizing you, you're already putting it to sleep, and this thing just collapses to the ground.
Yes, he's gonna move to. He's gonna move to start dragging it back, maybe away from the opening, so back towards the way he would come. Essentially, trying to. He's not sure if there's any other maybe creatures that were traveling with this thing, but and then
Gotcha. If you want to send Mukhtar to like go over there and like investigate to see if he hears anything else. While you're doing that, let me get a d20 from you. And I would say you could have him do perception, which I'm not sure. I think that's just the straight d20. Or you can have him do an investigation, which just looks to see for like if there's physical signs of other things being at that area.
Yeah, I think he would just be more kind of like listening and like maybe yeah. So just be straight a straight roll for perception
Sounds good.
or a straight number. So just a 4.
Yeah, I think he'll go up there and effectively, clear things, but he's just like bow out, like looks, doesn't seem to see anything. Um, he's effectively like just as much kind of watching you pull the thing away as he is actually looking around.
Yeah, so Davros kind of pulling the thing away from the entrance, and he probably hasn't seen one of these kind of more humanoid like rat things. So he's going to be kind of interested and just kind of looking it over. Um, does it look like it's yeah, I guess just inspecting the body.
What are you thinking? Like, do you want to do a medicine check, or you're just like kind of looking for things on this creature?
Um,
That's
More, I
more like
think.
me, like clarify what you're doing for me to respond, so I answer correctly.
Yeah, not so much probably not a medicine check. It's not more not like probably just like check like if it's like wearing clothes, like it's like has like kind of more humanoid characteristics, and maybe looking through what it was carrying. Because he's like heard of like creatures like this, but I don't think Davros probably hasn't seen one himself. So it's kind of a more fascination than like not really like studying like in terms of trying to.
Gotcha. Yeah, so let me just get a perception as you go through its things.
So that will be an 8.
Man, I fucking lost the rat that I chose. There we go. Rat folk doesn't show up when I search for rat.
That seems odd.
Yeah, that's annoying. So let's see, an 8. Yeah, you find this thing's wearing like studded leather armor. It's not nice armor. You could potentially sell it for some coin. This is one of those things where almost anything that you find from something you've killed, it's usually very much damaged goods. Partly because you've killed the thing. So it's like odd to see. Not only is this like maybe twice as large as the giant rat, which is twice as large as like a normal rat, this thing is almost human-like in its qualities. It's wearing studded leather armor that just as much looks like rags as not. But once you actually like start to go through this thing and treat it a little bit more like a humanoid, you start to notice that like it's got let's go for do a d6 plus 2. It has 6 daggers on it. Like you could see that it was already drawing for 2 of its daggers in response to you. Maybe one of them kind of like fell out while you dragged it over here. But going through, you can see that it has like little bands like on its like inner thighs where it had 2 daggers, one on each inner thigh, and then 2 more daggers like on its belt. So this thing has like daggers on like and accessible in multiple places on its body. Um Maybe find like a little bit of food that there's no chance that you would ever eat. But you also do spot a couple of coin and you can grab like 4 silver. And you can just write down 4 silver for yourself as if you found 8. But effectively, like, there's a weird level of recognizing that this thing might interact with the city above. Um, I don't think it has to be silver that is actually minted as coins, though, so much as recognizing that, like, this is a little bit more like raw silver.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Although some of it could be still coins, but just with the idea, like, technically the rat folk interact in the black market. Um, but that's one of those things where there'd be big differences between whether something is like minted imperial coins and also just enough silver to be acceptable.
Right. Just like raw, like ingots or pieces of clumps of yeah.
Well, that was part of why I was getting with the idea with that traveler who, when he went to offer you some copper, he just cut a silver coin in pieces because that was something that for the longest time, that's part of how people like if I was going to pay you a half a gold, I might take a gold coin and try to chop it in half, and that's a half a gold coin. In the long run, somebody might make out, somebody might lose. I've spent with ingots where I talked about it like I like just carve off a chunk of the ingot. It's almost like cutting people a piece of bread. You like put your knife on the ingot and you like look at them like, does this look like enough to you? If they if they say yes, you chop it off and bam, there you go, you're paid.
Yeah. Well, because I mean, like back then when they didn't, I mean, maybe it might have been different. Something like the empire might be advanced enough that there would be some value derived from the minting itself. But in general, I mean, it was always the weight of the metal that,
Precisely, yep.
like that was why,
But
like when they
you
say like debasing the coinage, like that literally meant mixing base metals into the silver or the gold or the copper.
yeah, yeah. But you find more signs of culture than are probably comfortable for you as you kill your first like humanoid rat. And then same idea, you can also add another should have given it a partner just so I had a chance to fight you. But you can do another like gold and a half for yourself insofar as taking its tail as well.
Gotcha. Yeah. So the he'll probably leave the studded leather because it's probably not he'd need to be more of a leather worker to kind of like think like maybe I could repair this into something that's not something that he's going to wear. um but he will go ahead and take the he'll probably split the daggers with Mukhtar seems like the type who might carry a bunch of daggers on him too.
So depending on how things go, studded leather, if I give you 10%, is still 4.5 gold. So that might be worth it for you. Um,
Mm,
and that's one of those things where you've got Mukhtar, like you guys have carrying capacity here. Um, it's up to you whether you want to. Like, I definitely feel like it's okay for me to just tell you, like, this is what I'll pay you for the rat tails. You can just immediately turn that to gold. But at least with the studded leather and like other things that you like the padded armor, those are up to you. How long you take to sell it can equal more gold. So
yeah, no, that's a good point. And yeah, and um
obviously the studded leather compared to the magical armor, though, the magical armor is much better. But it's still one of those things where you can certainly contemplate it because 20% value is 9 gold.
yeah, I forgot studded leather is actually you know um more expensive than I think. So yeah, he will take the time then to kind of strip off the studded leather. Um, yeah, I mean he's a strong guy. He can carry a bunch, and between him and Mukhtar, yeah, there's no reason not to take it. Um,
And you know what? I shouldn't pass over it. Technically, this thing has a light crossbow on it as well. Crossbows are good money as well if you wanted to collect that.
uh, yeah, he will definitely yeah take that as well.
Uh, as far as the crossbow goes, Roll 3d6, and that's how many bolts it has.
15.
Yeah, so you can write down that you've got a light crossbow and 15 bolts.
I don't think it's actually. Oh no, yeah, he's barbarian. I think he could use that if he wanted, but he's more interested in selling. Um, yeah, so he'll kind of like look to Mukhtar and not not a bad haul. I don't exactly like the idea of these things running about right under our feet, but anyway, should we keep going? And he'll kind of look and turn back towards the way they had come now, with the idea of um,
Did
continuing
you just
on.
move some of the dead rats?
I accidentally clicked on one of the little ones. Yeah, I was moving down back towards the water, essentially wants to head in that direction around the other side of the pool. Um,
Gotcha.
but also, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
You've got 3 more ways that you could potentially explore there. One of them is like a narrower tunnel that goes east. One of them is a narrower tunnel that goes south. And then the other option is either following the north or the southern side of where that like lake of water goes, which is kind of like more or less just beyond your sight. You saw where the water was ending, but that water basically continued in that cavern that you could follow.
Yeah, I think he's gonna go. He's gonna take like probably like the first available. So this one to the east here, as he kind of comes around this side.
Gotcha. So this is where I kind of like mistakenly I hit everything on the map that I originally created to. I don't know why I created this mission ages ago, but I created it as like this is the map of this area. So you have a area where you're gonna kind of follow the tunnel, and then you come through on the opposite side, and there is effectively like a little bit of a cavern here, with a larger exit to the south and a smaller exit to the north. But again, like I have like sewer above you there. So technically you have to jump to the next thing.
Gotcha. I think he will go for the larger looking entrance, which I think he said it's the one to the south.
I guess I should give it to you that when you pass through this area, you would see like steel door, like steel bars to the north.
Oh, yeah. In that case, he will. Um, Kind of seeing signs of actual construction will move in that direction to investigate those.
So when you kind of like round this corner and you're starting to head for that area to the south, there's like that last moment where as you're kind of like passing by this narrower little corridor that you like catch the little bit of flash of like blackened steel, and it like takes your mind a moment to kind of recognize it before you double back. Like this is back to that like culture idea. Like this is beyond just rats. This is beyond just natural cavern. Something is present here. And as you kind of come back to it, you find that there's like a steel barrier of like say 15 or so steel bars that go like the 7 or 8 feet to the ceiling, floor to ceiling, leaving not much more than like 6 inch gaps between any given of the bars. By no mean are they like uniform distances between the bars, but it does have kind of like a rough, like steel barred door through the center. And there's like a barrel kind of lock. Do you have any proficiency with lock picking? Are you capable of picking lock?
Davros is not proficient. His method would be more brute force than um, any sort of
Gotcha. So getting closer to this, you could like take your shit, I already forgot the name, the chisel, and you could potentially like smash into the lock with your hammer and chisel to try to break it. Or you could just try to smash through the steel. But at present, you're kind of like staring at a like locked steel um, portcullis almost.
Yeah, I think he'd try the lock first before going straight at the bars. So yeah, taking out like the chisel or some other of his smith's tools and essentially just trying to almost use it like a kind of like maybe kind of put it against the lock and then with like almost like the his maul or something else like trying to like essentially um yeah like smash through it, just trying to brute force it open.
Gotcha. Yeah, let me see a strength athletics. Um I think realistically it comes back to it's just an attack to it too. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's nice. So let me have you roll a d6 here.
yeah,
Could even made that higher. Yeah, so as you like kind of like approach this, you get the chisel in there and you got your hammer and you're just trying to see if you can get like one strike. You don't necessarily put enough into it to really cause a lot of noise. You don't seem to hear anything kind of happening in the halls around you, but you also don't seem to have gotten any budge to the actual lock here.
yeah. I think if he can, Davros is going to try and give it one more go.
Excellent. Same idea, hammer and chisel.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think this can basically be an attack. I think athletics runs like the same thing. So let me just get
uh,
a nat one.
yeah,
Do on this one. I feel like the D6 was too much last time, so let me stick with a D6 again.
5 this time.
Gotcha. Same time, another strike into this doesn't seem to be like enough to cause um any big this or that. You're not like really putting too much into it. You don't seem to hear anything from the halls around you, but the lock still is intact.
Yeah, so Davros is going to give like a loud snort of frustration and kind of like look back to Urs Mukhtar and shaking his head and we want to get through there. We'll have to come back later with something a little more suited to the task.
Trying to think, do rangers normally have a reason? They're like a weird, like almost rogue class.
Yeah, I feel like it would be kind of depend on the ranger type. Like it was like a more kind of like scout kind of rogue ranger hybrid kind of thing they might know, but
See, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Where like, I mean, the skills it tells you to take don't include sleight of hand or lock picking tools.
Yeah, I think the only yeah rogues are the only class that starts with them, and I think the urchin background gives you proficiency with them, but not the actual tools.
That's why I love the urchin background.
Yeah, it could make sense
Yeah,
for certain rangers to um, have them, but I don't. Yeah, I think, and also I guess I mean it is a little after 7, so with the I could have the idea that Davros wants to get through there, but maybe he has to come back later, or go find someone and bring someone who might be able to pick the lock, or um, something like that. Yeah.
gotcha. So yeah, with a little bit of kind of like trepidation in the noise that you've caused, kind of sensing yourself a little bit more exhausted from having expended your resources, you guys see enough reason to call this a solid time to leave. Um, do you want to roll a D100 and like do you want to price those two items so you can just have a gold amount and call this all finished, or do you think you would spend um like do you want to like get rid of the studded leather armor quickly? Are you looking to sell the crossbow quickly? Do you want to spend more time selling the magical armor?
Yeah, I think probably the studded leather and the crossbow. He would just basically kind of take what he can get quickly. Kind of the padded leather, he might the padded armor. I think he would be cognizant that maybe he should take a little more care and try to get a good price for that. But I think the mundane stuff, um, I think he would just essentially sell for what he could get, and then probably and then split the proceeds with Mukhtar. Maybe even like after we leave, we just find um, like a merchant in the Guildsman district and be like, what do you give me for this, and kind of just take what he can get.
Gotcha. And that was again for the crossbow and for the studded leather
Uh,
armor.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, let me have you roll just a D100 for each of those. Crossbow first, studded leather armor second, and we're just gonna have that. So you can get 30% on the crossbow.
Okay.